It's time for MacBreak Weekly, episode 189, where we finally all got our iPads, and we're going to take a look at the good, the bad, and the, well, there's no ugly. We'll take a look at the iPad with Andy Ihnatko, Alex Lindsay, John Gruber, and Chris Breen from Macworld Magazine. MacBreak Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 189 for April 6th, 2010, iPad Mania. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Squarespace.com, the fast and easy way to publish a high-quality website or blog. For a free trial and 10% off your new account, go to squarespace.com/MacBreak. And by Audible.com. To download a free audiobook of your choice, go to audible.com/MacBreak. And by GoToMeeting. Do more and travel less with GoToMeeting. Make your next meeting a GoToMeeting instead. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the iPad edition, episode 189, pre-iPhone 4.0, post-iPad 1.0, and we've got a great panel of people here to discuss it, starting with Alex Lindsay, who is in Pittsburgh, PA.
Freeport, actually. Freeport, Pennsylvania. I'm coming to you from Salzgiver. It's an ISP that's here, and I wanted to make sure I got to a town close enough to get a good connection.
Salzgiver sounds like Abelsgiver. Is that it must be a Pennsylvania Dutch word.
It's I'm not sure what Lauren Salzgiver it's his place.
Ask him if he knows Abelsgiver.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity. Also here, Mr. from Colorado, wearing Andy Ihnatko, wearing what is that cap? Is that Colorado University? University of Colorado.
That is my University of Colorado Buffaloes, yes.
Yes.
I try to buy a new one every year at the Conference on World Affairs at the CU bookstore. This is the first year in 2 years they've had the fitted wool cap that I like. So
it's lovely.
I'm a happy guy.
Is that one of those?
I'm only mixed up for the lack of oxygen.
Is that the cap with the Sansa belt built in so it fits all sizes? Or is it actually your head size?
Yeah, you have to get it sized for your specific melon.
And what melon size are you sporting today?
That would be a 7 7/8, sir.
Good Lord! That's why I don't wear the one size fits all, because it sits on my head like a yarmulke. There's a lot of juice in that melon. Holy cow!
Same hat size as Jeeves. I should point out.
Merlin Mann not with us this week. John Gruber is of DaringFireball.net. Great to see you, John.
Great to see you.
And we wanted to get you on our first iPad show so that we can see how you feel now that it's out and the unicorn tears are thoroughly sprinkled. also with us from Macworld Magazine, the Mac Daddy, the bouffant of all knowledge, Mr. Christopher Breen. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Liam.
Senior editor at Macworld.com.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you all. Look at that. Full panel today. Everybody hold up your iPads. Now, here's the question. Andy, you don't have one? Oh, there. Okay. Here's the question.
That's the fake one.
Are we sad that we don't have the 3G, or are we suckers that we bought the Wi-Fi? John Gruber, do you feel like you should have bought the Wi-Fi?
If I were a regular consumer, I think I probably would have waited for the Wi-Fi. But I really felt like, I don't get a review unit from Apple, so cry me a river. But
no,
if
we
I
had
to write
to.
about it
You're
now.
right.
I needed to buy it now. So I figured right on day one, I was talking to a friend right outside the line, right after I talked to you guys outside the line when we were waiting to go in. When we didn't even know if there would be 3G. They hadn't made the announcement yet, but we kind of figured there'd be both. And it just seems like you could buy one now, and if you really want the 3G in a month or 6 weeks, the resale value on these ought to be relatively high. I could probably sell it for, I don't know, $100 off.
You think?
If you sell it to someone overseas, some of them are going for as high as $5,500 online.
You're kidding.
Yeah, but that's not going to hold up by the time the 3G comes out.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, too, is it seems like, and just having been home for the weekend for the holiday, for Easter, it seems like an awful lot of my relatives would be pretty happy to to have it as a gift.
Take it off your hands. Yeah. Yeah, it has a real good wow factor, doesn't it? Alex, you were on the plane. Actually, you and Andy both were on planes. What kind of response were you getting?
It was the TSA hadn't seen one yet because I think I got on a couple hours after they released it, and so of course they wanted to take a look at it and play with it for a little while, and so
does it go through as a laptop? Do you have to take it out of your bag, or is it?
Yeah, they said it was good. They just said it's pretty much on the X-ray. I guess evidently it looks a lot like a Kindle. They said from their perspective.
So you don't have to take it out of your bag.
They said it was probably a good idea to take it out. I asked them when I went in, and they looked at it. And
they said it was a good idea because they wanted to fondle it.
Yeah. So, but it was a lot of people. Obviously there was a fair bit of commotion on the plane.
What do they do? They run it back and forth through the X-ray a few times just to see what it looks like to kind of get. They've actually
done it. They've actually done this a couple times with. I take all kinds of weird gear, in my carry-on bags, and so I'm actually pretty used to it. I give myself a little extra time if I'm going to bring something that doesn't look like everything else that's gone through the system. And they actually what they do is they look at the X-ray picture and then they look at the device again to kind of gear in their head where things are. They're seeing all these different colors and all this other stuff and trying to make sure that they kind of understand what that actually is. And so it was pretty reasonable. They were really nice about it. They were excited to play with one. So but anyway, so that was it. And then of course everyone on the plane. I think there were some two kids behind me that they stared at me half the plane, so I finally handed it to them. I was like, here. And their review was very good.
They immediately go to the games, of course, right?
Yeah, they played. I had the racer, I've got a bunch of the games on there.
Right.
The racer one was really popular. Field Runners, and obviously Plants vs. Zombies was very popular among the kids.
So, what was it like for you, Andy Ihnatko?
Well, actually, I've had sort of a Jekyll and Hyde experience because I took mine out on Thursday on Amtrak. I was on Amtrak for 2 hours on the way in and then 2 hours on the way back on Friday, like pre-release, and I barely got any notice whatsoever with it. I was using it in a window at Starbucks, like enjoying a coffee Carmelito latte, whatever they have. That was a little bit more ego boosting because it's New York City. People are passing by the window.
Are they pointing and waving?
Backwards. Exactly, and then I would simply stop what I was doing. I would hold up the iPad.
That's pretty funny.
I'd hold up my iPad and then rotate it so they could see that it's actually a real iPad, and then they'd give me the double Isaac,
cool,
or whatever, and then go on. But even on the plane ride on the way over here to Boulder yesterday, not much attention. The difference though is at the Conference on World Affairs, which is like a week-long conference of just 100 different people talking on a bunch of different subjects. And I just posted something in my blog this morning that the new informal name for the iPod is Jennifer Connelly's breasts, because this is pretty much every place I went with this. What they really wanted, they were happy to see me, but what they really wanted to see were the thing that I brought with me. So that's pretty much how that thing went.
Is that Jennifer Connelly's experience as well? Is that what you're saying?
I could only guess. It was just like, oh,
we're happy to see you, but whip it out. Is that what you're saying?
I'm holding the iPad like this, and I'm using it, and I'm like, my eyes up here.
Look at my eyes. Talk to me, not my iPad. This might be a chance for a rare chance for guys to get a sense of what it's like to be a woman in modern America.
But I did one panel. The format of these panels are. There are like 2 or 3 speakers on the stage. Each of us talks for about 10 minutes. Then we open up the floor for questions and answers, and usually there's about 45 minutes to an hour's worth of questions. About 20 minutes before, 20 minutes into the Q&A, there was a question. If no one has any more questions about the subject, Andy, can you tell me about your iPad? And then, of course, 2 minutes later, no one had any other questions except for the iPad, so it turned into a panel about my iPad.
Oh, that's not going to happen much longer, but it's good to enjoy it while you can.
Sure. It's good to walk in a room and have people be happy that you're there. That's all. We should cherish that.
Andy, you of all the panelists, you're the one who's had it the longest. Are you jaded yet?
Not at all. Just the opposite, because remember that for the first week that I had it, I couldn't use it outside. I had to stay inside the house. Right. With it. I wasn't allowed to use it in public. So that was the first time that I actually used it on a train, entertaining myself during a trip. The first time that I could be at a conference and say, gee, yesterday morning when the news about, when I got the invitation to Apple's event on Thursday.
Oh, you got an invitation, did you? I'll never be getting another invitation again, I can tell you right now. I know now The silence is deafening.
but that was it's exactly the use scenario that I always imagined, that I just want to dash off a quick 400 or 500 words about a topic. I don't, otherwise would have had to bring out my entire laptop with me and carry it with me all day. Here I just took this out of my satchel, bounced it on my knees, wrote 400 or 500 words just on the virtual keyboard, and published it all within the space of 20-25 minutes. It is the most. It really does fill in a gap that has existed for at least 10 years for me, and I couldn't be more excited about it.
Unfortunately, we've lost John. I'm going to keep trying to get him back because he was the one who I thought very saliently observed before the iPad came out that there must be some magic mojo that Apple's got. Otherwise, what's the difference between this and the other laptops that Bill Gates has been trying to foist upon the public for over a decade, you know?
No, it's a brand new thing. That's the point that I keep trying to impress when people ask me about it. That don't think of it as an alternative to a netbook. Don't think of it as a super duper book reader. It is a brand new thing. It's a new class of computer called the iPad. Later on in this year, there'll be other Slate-like computers out there that we can compare it to, but for now, this is what we have, and it's up to all those other manufacturers like Microsoft and Dell and all those other companies to make a machine that is as good as the iPad, and I really don't think that they've got what it takes to make it. It is almost perfectly executed.
Sorry to keep losing you, John.
I don't know if that's my fault. It could be here.
What the hell? I'll just keep calling you back and calling you back.
You know what I mean? You'd think in the hometown of Comcast you'd get good internet, but...
You mean
not since the FCC ruling?
You mean cable? What is it? Cabletown?
Yeah, Cabletown with a K.
With a K. So, John, I was saying while you were gone that I thought very astutely said that there's got to be something magic in this that makes it better than all the other tablets we've seen for the last decade. Now that you've played with it for a while, is there?
I think there's a couple of things. I think it's I think the whole simplicity of the interface is absolutely.
Oh, he's going to be gone again, I think. We're going to lose you.
Or
again.
no, still here.
Yeah, you froze. Are you on Wi-Fi, John? By any chance, are you on a Wi-Fi connection or a wired connection?
I am, but there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah, this is a Wi-Fi problem we get all the time, which is that Wi-Fi drops all the time. No, nobody would normally notice it, but you do on a phone call.
What did you hear me say? Did I say something?
You said nothing.
I said nothing.
Say nothing. This time, let's hear you say something. No, you said all we heard you say was there's definitely something going on, and what is it?
Well, I think the simplicity of the interface is one thing. And it's just joyful, just the feel of it, that it just feels joyful to use.
Wow.
And the other thing, though, is got to be battery life. I mean, the battery life is absolutely insane. I mean, all the reviews are emphasizing that the battery life is surprisingly good, better than the 10 hours that Apple's promising. And for me, it really is. I mean, it just blows me away. I mean, and I have all sorts of tricks that I know that when I'm using my MacBook Pro on battery, not plugged in, I know to quit things. I know to not leave a lot of background tabs running in Safari, because the more stuff running in Safari, there's just little tiny bits of JavaScript running, add up to a lot of CPU cycles, and all of a sudden you've only got 90 minutes of battery. With this thing, I mean, if you don't plug it in, it's still there, and it still looks, it's never dropped below 50% for me.
Right. That is the two things that we didn't know ahead of time. I'll give you in a second, Chris. But that's the two things we really couldn't be sure of ahead of time. Apple claimed 10 hours. Not only is it 10 hours in some tests, Andy's, your tests, it's more than 10 hours. And the snappiness and responsiveness of it, and just the way the screen feels. Those of us who held it at the event were telling people who hadn't held it, no, wait, because there's more to it than meets the eye. And I think that's even more to the case. Go ahead, Chris.
I'll add one more thing just before I pass it off.
Sure, John.
One more thing is that the viewing angle on the IPS is really, to me, amazing.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
And that was, to me, the big question I had all along for 2 years with these rampant rumors of hey, Apple's going to make a tablet, is it seems to me you're going to want to just, like when you're having coffee in the morning, you want to set it down flat on the table, and you have a cup of coffee or a bowl of cereal or whatever, and that's how you read magazines. It's flat on the table. That's an angle that never worked for LCD screens. Right. It works great with this. It really does. And I put my iPhone down as a comparison, and you kind of have to prop your iPhone up at a closer to a perpendicular angle to your eyes. And the iPad viewing angle is really, really phenomenal for reading.
Chris Breen, what have you noticed that you didn't expect?
Well, I was going to jump in on battery life because this indicates that Apple is confident about battery life. And this is a game they routinely play. When the iPods first came out, they said, yes, they'll get 10 hours or so. But there was a lot of finagling you'd have to do in order to get that kind of life out of it. And the iPhone the same kind of way. With the iPad, what they've done is what they eventually did with the iPods is they said, yeah, you'll get 15 hours, you get 30 hours. And they're totally confident about that. And then when people actually put them to the test, they find out that they run much longer than that. And so it's interesting that a V1 product comes out with that confidence. Just before we started the show, you said everybody get their iPads. I'm running this audio test, which I normally do with iPods and iPhones, to see how long you can play audio uninterrupted. It's been going for 48 hours.
Wow.
I have to leave town in 2 days, and it's at 70%.
Wow.
So I just abandoned the test because I'll never have my iPod or my iPad back again. And apparently Mossberg talked to Steve Jobs about this, and Jobs said, oh, yeah, you get audio playback uninterrupted for 140 hours, which is crazy. I could drive back and forth across the United States and listen to the same, a collection of music hour after hour after hour, and the thing would stay alive. So they've done very nicely on that. And again, I'm impressed that it's on a V1 product, that the battery life is as good as it is. I think they've learned a lot from power management on the iPhone, where it's crucial. And the fact is there's no 3G on here, so you don't have that kind of drain going on.
Let's see what happens.
How that changes, when you're on 3G.
Well, and I definitely think it will change. I mean, I think that one of the things that I do pretty often, although I think the Wi-Fi is also another draw. Typically, I haven't seen it with this, but I know that with my iPhone, if I'm not if I want it to extend its life, I'll actually turn it to Edge, which sometimes is more stable than 3G in San Francisco, and turn off the Wi-Fi, and it'll last for days. On my iPhone, it just it's amazing how much those two factors really chew into it. But I have to say that I can't believe how long the battery lasts on these things. And the other thing is that I expected it to be the same. I guess I expected it to be the same performance as the iPhone, and the fluidity of the motions and everything else. You really just feel like it's a much more futuristic device.
The speed is great. Yeah, that's what Abby said when she got back. On Sunday night, she hadn't held it yet, and she held it. She said, I feel like I'm holding the future. Yeah. It does kind of feel like that kind of a futuristic thing, doesn't it? Sorry to cover you up.
It really is it's the first new computer in 25 years. That's, right. I'm confident about saying that. And
it really is a family. We, my kids and I brought one back. I gave my son got one for his birthday. His birthday was
that's a good present.
Yeah. It was days afterwards.
No, you had to give it to him. You had no choice.
And he really wanted one, and I knew that he'd use it a lot. And of course, now he just completely ignores me. And he's sitting there just enveloped in this little iPad world. But one of the things that when I pull him out of it, one of the things we were doing is playing that Scrabble that you hook up with the Bluetooth or the Wi-Fi. And so my kids have iPhones, so that it's either your iPhone or his iPad. And my iPad was like the hub, and it was just I don't think of doing that on my laptop. I don't know why, but I just don't have that experience where the three of us we're sitting around playing Scrabble together, where everyone's flicking, and it works remarkably well. Actually, I like it better than actually working with the physical version of Scrabble. And I just, that's something that there's a whole bunch of things. That's one area, but there's a whole bunch of things that I realized that there's a lot of applications that I took off. It automatically sunk the 300 applications I have for my iPhone onto my iPad. And
that was pretty awful, wasn't it? Did the same thing to me. 2 hours later, I'm going, oh God,
it took me an hour and a half to think. I finally just stopped it because Justine was over at her office and she was already playing with hers, and I couldn't. I was like, okay, forget it.
Well, when you get an iPhone app on the thing, you really see the difference in screen size. I mean, it's just it's a quarter of the size, and even if you double it up on the 2 dimensions, it just doesn't really that usable. I took almost all of the But there's a reason not to, because I notice a number of people have been slipstreaming universal apps in. Zillow came out with a universal app. The Zagat Guides came out with a universal app. And when they do, it's a wonderful little revelation, because you open it up and you go, oh, it's full screen. I just love it. It's using all the real estate, and it's doing really good things. The Zagat Guide is a really good example of how this real estate makes a huge difference in what you could do on a UI.
Yeah, that's the big argument for when people were saying this is just a big iPod Touch. that totally changes when you see that that user interface on this big, huge, full screen. As after the first day with the iPad, I stopped thinking of it as a big iPod Touch and started thinking of my iPhone, as the mobile edition of the iPad operating system.
Well, it's not a bad thing, though, to say it is a big iPod Touch, because it really is. It's just that bigger screen, that faster processor, makes a big iPod Touch really cool. A good thing to have.
Well, it's true, and I think as John said that I think a couple of hours after owning his iPad, he tweeted, "Wow, my iPhone really sucks."
Yeah, you don't want to go back. I disconnected
and it does and that real estate is so key because for things like control surfaces, or because I'm a musician, I think about music apps and things where I can interact with my computer or instruments. This is a really big deal. They have things like that on the iPhone, but you're working in these little tiny spaces, and it's uncomfortable to work with that. It was a miracle when you could do it on your iPhone, but now the fact that you have the kind of real estate where you can do something useful with it and do it for long periods of time is incredible. So I completely disagree with this. Oh, it's a big iPod Touch, as if that's a bad thing.
No, it's a good thing.
The better way, I think, to show somebody who wants to, if somebody still wants to argue that it's just a big iPod Touch, the better way than to show them a native iPad app is to show them an iPhone app scaled up to 2x.
That's a big iPod Touch.
Right, and even if you ignore the pixel doubling, which it looks, if you just imagine that it looked good, you can just using it, it's just not good. It just these are iPhone apps are user interfaces that are designed to be used with one thumb going diagonal to diagonal on a 3-inch screen, whereas this is something that's meant to be used with 2 hands. Right. I mean, it's totally different.
Even this swollen keyboard on the old interface is not anywhere near as good as the keyboard that comes on the iPad.
Well, and I also I downloaded, of course, a bunch of the magazines, whether it's Time Magazine and Popular Science, and a couple of books. And the one that for me just, as soon as someone tweeted me that I should download Elements. Did you guys download the Elements?
I saw Andy showed it to me last week.
Yeah,
I was just
it's beautiful.
It was like
but
one of those
expensive.
things. Like I downloaded. I forgot that the book even existed. It was one of those things. Like I think I have it in my library, and I just forgot. And the thing is that it was a gorgeous book. So it's the periodic table, but it's these great photos of each.
It sure comes alive when you do it in this thing. I mean, you can spin the
elements
rocks.
are rotating.
Yeah, and you know what? It's like there's a trick going on because you can spin all of them, and they all stay spinning, and then they slowly degrade. I mean, it's like plate spinning. This is a remarkable app. However, it's $14 for this, right?
I know, but when I saw that, I was like, textbooks are dead.
It's pretty cool.
I mean,
but it totally doesn't that thing. I swear to God, Wesley Crusher had that thing on Star Trek: The Next Generation. I swear to God, there's like a couple of episodes where he's got that thing, and that's how he's learning chemistry. Or
you're right. We got to get Will Wheaton on the show and ask him because.
Well, and I saw. I mean, I showed that to a friend of mine who's actually a chemistry teacher. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I have to get an iPad just to get that get that application."
Yeah, I showed my high school.
It was just like I have to. That's something I have to use in my class.
I showed my high school senior daughter. Same reaction. It's like, oh man, I wish we'd had this. It's really interesting because I have a high school freshman and a high school senior, and already there's a 3 years difference. There's a gulf between I wish we had this when I was a kid. I mean, it's kind of things are moving a little too fast.
My son is 6 and he's in kindergarten, and I really had a hard time getting any time with it. I came on Saturday by UPS, and I really had a hard time getting any time with it. I mean, he took to it like nothing else. I mean, he's used a Mac and played some games and stuff like that, but for a kid he really has. You can see it with him with a mouse that there's a motor coordination thing and a disconnect. He took to this like nothing I've ever seen before. And the other thing that I thought was really interesting is I showed him iBooks and the first app. You get the.
Winnie the Pooh,
Winnie the Pooh. So I just gave it to him. I just said, "Here, launch this," and gave it to him to see what he would do. And he just took to it immediately and started swiping pages in the book. He got it. Yeah. He didn't ask and took to swiping rather than tapping without even thinking about it.
Well, and the Dr. Seuss, I don't know if you've gotten any of the Dr. Seuss books, but
now they're standalone apps, right? Or are they in the bookstore?
They're standalone apps, and I was talking to someone who does a lot of publishing, and they said, the iBooks are going to be great, but they said a lot of publishers, just to get, especially if they're very picture based, are really going to be building their own apps because the book format doesn't really let them do what they want to do to take full advantage of it, and so. But it was so well implemented. I downloaded a couple of the Dr. Seuss books because I love them, and I figured my son will love them. And not only do they swipe, but they'll read it to you, and then they have little pan and zooms into different parts of the picture, so it'll move you from one place to the other. And they've already started breaking up that we're just going to have pages that you turn into a much more interactive experience. And it's just. I'm not buying it. I mean, it's going to be a year from now. I think the next year will be my last year of buying anything on paper.
Now, Danny O'Brien in his blog Oblamovka said, and Cory Doctorow quoted him that this was just the return of the CD-ROM, and I think Jeff Jarvis picked this up as well, that the publishers were loving it because it was a lock-in. And, when I hear Dr. Seuss apps as opposed to a Dr. Seuss book, I kind of cringe a little bit that it's a lock-in. And Danny's point is it's not, it's going to be just as ho-hum in a couple of years. We're going to go, what were we all so excited about? Why isn't this just the return of the CD-ROM?
Well, it might be. It might be the return of the CD-ROM, but the thing is if it's a lock-in, I'll hand you the key. I mean, the thing is that this is...
I guess we're all kind of going for it, aren't we? Yeah.
Well, and the thing is that I think that Apple has enough of a trajectory that it's not like it's going to be a flash in the pan. This isn't somebody's little idea of an iPad or some kind of tablet device. We know that this is going to go somewhere. We know that it's going to be successful. We know what the iPhone is going to look like, made it, where it went. And so it's not like I'm not worried about going down a dead end. That's how you sell 300,000 units in the first day, is that people aren't worried about a dead end, relationship with this. But in addition to that, I do think that there were a lot of things that were available with CD-ROMs, but nothing had this kind of performance, and you had to keep on switching them all and everything else. The idea is that you can have all the books that you want, on one device.
I think that's a great point. I was just thinking about that, was that we think about the switching them in and out thing, and there's only one at a time, and you hit eject, and you wait, and you have to unmount, and and find the disc, take it out of the case, put it in, make sure it doesn't get scratched. So the analogy is right there. If you want to go with the CD-ROM analogy, it's right there with CDs for music versus digital music and CD-ROMs in this, where you can just have all of them right there, one touch of the home screen and a tap on the icon away. I mean, it's
there's
huge
where
difference.
There's where a lack of multitasking makes a difference. Go ahead, Andy.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I think the real goal is for this to become ho-hum in 2 years. I mean, when was the last time someone said, you realize that I typed this message, and if I typed a press button, I didn't have to print it or anything, but the person was able to receive it and read it not 1 minute later. We are in the world of tomorrow. It's like, well, get over yourself. It's email. What the hell? Did you just fall off a turnip truck? The iPad is just going to be the invisible medium that propels all of our content and all of our communication.
Well, also the key difference is that this is a portable device, and you had CD-ROMs, and so you have to read or experience your media by sitting in a computer, which most people don't want to do, or at least not for long periods of time. I can take this on a plane, I can take it on the train, I can walk outside with it, I can go anywhere I like, and then now I have a book, except it happens to be electronic. And so, yeah, maybe it does become ho-hum, but also that first rash of CD-ROMs came out, they were garish. There was way too much going on in the things, and it really wasn't a terrific learning experience. We have plenty of time to refine this now. I've been talking to a lot of book authors about this, and everybody's saying, well, we don't want to repeat the CD-ROM experience. And we probably will for a while. There's going to be some horrible stuff for a while, but eventually we're going to come up with ways to do this properly, just as they've done with applications, and it will be a very rich, very intriguing experience.
I do have to say,
also,
though,
remember that they can just add this to their workflow. It's just they print a PDF, they print a digital. It's the same workflow.
Well, that's one thing that is kind of an issue for me is workflow, the lack of multitasking. I'm not lobbying for multitasking, but you are doing one thing at a time, and it is a little bit like putting the CD-ROM in. You can only do that. And there's times when, for instance, I'm reading an article, and there's some great news applications. I'm using Early Edition, which is a great little RSS reader that makes a newspaper. But I can't bookmark them on Delicious. I can't, there's workflow issues. I can't copy and paste content without exiting it and going to another one and going back.
Well, I'm hoping that that's something they're going to address on Thursday. I mean, that's one of the rumors is that we're going to see.
I don't see multitasking ever on these platforms. I mean, there was an interesting article in Ars Technica, and I don't know. I would love to know if you guys think this is bogus or real, but I think it was Ars that submitted that the reason Apple doesn't put flash in, doesn't put a camera in, doesn't do multitasking, they can make simpler chipsets that don't need additional capabilities, and so they can make lower cost chipsets that they may not even we don't know what the capabilities of the A4 are. It may well be that these things just can't do.
Well, but certainly they're going to scale up the chipset, so that's not a huge issue.
But that's where you get battery life. That's where you get lower costs. I mean, there's a reason to do that, right?
Right, but I think on the iPad they certainly could do multitasking because of the battery life. But then, do you want a product family that says, okay, well, the battery life is great on this, but on my iPhone, it sucks?
I'll tell you why you don't want to do multitasking. The UI. One of the things that we all love about this is the simplicity of the UI. Yeah. You can, look at HP is going to do a slate, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. It's going to have Windows 7 on it. It's going to have touch. It's going to have all the same features. But the complexity of the UI that's introduced by having a start menu in Windows 7 and all of that, and multitasking, really takes away from the elegance. One of the reasons this is so straightforward and simple is that it doesn't multitask. It's very kind of in the term that Apple used when the Mac first came out. It's very modal.
But I have to admit, my need
also when you have one, you have a one window interface to begin with. So I'm not sure how fast it's going to be to switch between one window and another, unless they try to do a tiling sort of thing, which allow me to basically have a source and a destination, or have like a movie window in one corner while I'm doing things and other things. If multitasking does appear, what I would love to see is just the ability for iPhone apps at the same time, like in different quadrants of the window at the same time. Wouldn't that be cool?
Well, I know that my need for multitasking primarily revolves around Skype on my iPhone. Or Line 2, which are the two that I kind of play with as far as VoIP goes. That's the one I really notice it. Is when I can't make it like a phone. I can't be talking to someone and then doing something else, and I can't do that's the whole thing. And those things are already happening. And part of me, the conspiracy theorist in me thinks that Apple does that partially so that you don't end up with Skype or Line 2 completely replacing my use of the phone.
But why should they care on this one? Because this one's not a phone, right?
No,
well, I'm not, and I do think that that's going to be part of the announcements this week, and I don't think it's going to be
multitasking.
I do, but I think it's going to come in limited forms. It's not just going to be it's something you can turn on and your app stays running. It'll be your app is able to do things while it's not open. So I almost feel like the language we use isn't quite right. Like we think of multitasking the way the actual computer implements it, with running processes, launching processes, exiting processes, quitting, launching, running, and multiple things are running. With the iPhone interface on the phones and the iPad, it's really more like open and doing something. So only one app can be open at a time because it takes the whole screen. But apps, and the ones from Apple can still do stuff while they're not open.
I can listen to my iPod.
Right. So I think what they'll do is add APIs that allow third-party developers to do stuff in the background. So, for example, it would be absolutely great if Pandora could do the same thing that the iPod. That doesn't mean that the full Pandora app would be running visually, in some visual way where you could actually see it at all times. It would just mean that there's technically there's a process that's streaming audio. And then if you actually wanted to go back to Pandora, you'd still have to reopen the actual app that shows you stuff. I think the other thing, and I don't have any information about this is just speculation, but it's sort of how Android works. And it would be interesting if Apple could add something like this, where an app that isn't open, isn't visible on screen, could be in a suspended state. Where when next time you open it, it comes right back where it was. And you do see this, and I'm not quite sure how they do it, but you see it kind of like when you get a phone call on the iPhone. If you accept the call, all of a sudden you're in the phone. Right. And then when you end the call,
green bar at the top says if you get.
It's not that the app relaunches. It was like pickled somehow, in a state. It would be interesting if they could somehow maybe it would be something that developers would have to, recompile their apps for the 4.0 OS to do and support these APIs. but rather than think of them, because that's a lot of what I want to do, is like, for example, I wrote I'm writing my review of the iPad on the iPad in Pages. So a lot of what I'm doing,
that's eating your own dog food. Holy cow!
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's really not, with a Bluetooth keyboard.
Right.
I'm using a Bluetooth keyboard.
Right.
But the one thing that I find myself doing over and over again is going back to Safari to read somebody else's review, copy a URL to paste into my thing. And so it doesn't really feel, and I always thought this with the iPhone, it doesn't really feel like you're quitting and launching. It's, back to home, back to this app, back to home, back to this app. So the home screen, at least if you're not going, if the two apps you're switching between are right next to each other on the same home screen, it kind of is like switching. I mean, you hit the home button once,
right,
and then you tap the other icon. You hit the home button, tap the other icon. And for at least for Safari and Pages, it's really pretty fast. It's not quite instantaneous, but Pages on the iPad opens back up, whatever document you were editing opens right back up to it, and you're pretty much right back where you left off.
We're going to take go ahead.
It actually works pretty well. I mean, it could be faster, though. It definitely could be faster to get back to where you were.
We're going to take a break, and I want to come back and talk about, we have so much to talk about. Maybe let's talk about the things that you would like to see changed on the iPad. We also will talk about competitors, the HP Slate. We're starting to see some specs for that. And iPhone 4.0. I was thinking, should we do the show today or should we wait till Thursday? And I thought, well, we got plenty to talk about with the iPad, and maybe we'll just do something on Thursday after the announcement, do an additional MacBreak Weekly special, because there's more than enough to talk about with the iPad alone today. And it's kind of fun, our last chance to speculate about what 4.0 might include. We'll do more of that as well. I love speculation. But before we do that, let's take a little break. John Gruber is here from Daring Fireball. Andy Ihnatko, who's in Colorado for the World Affairs Council. He is, of course, with the Chicago Sun-Times. Andy also has a website called The Celestial Waste of Bandwidth. Chris Breen from Macworld, senior editor, and Alex Lindsay. A big panel today on the show from pixelcore.com talking about the new iPad. But before we do that, a little more of that, let's talk about GoToMeeting. Did you see there's a GoToMeeting iPad app, which is awesome. So now you can be sitting on a park bench or in bed and join a meeting. I want somebody to have a meeting just so I can play with it a little bit. Anybody want to have a meeting? Please let me know. GoToMeeting is a way to meet online with Mac users, Windows users, and now iPad users. Show them the presentation. They see your screen. You can see their screen. I don't know if the GoToMeeting shares the other way. It probably doesn't on the iPad. I'll have to have a meeting and see. It does on the computer, of course. Completely secure SSL encryption, so you're always safe, even if you're in an internet cafe sitting there with your iPad on a top secret meeting. I think GoToMeeting is really the best way to meet online. If you haven't tried online meetings, or if you've had online meetings with other products and not been satisfied, try this one for free for 30 days. Go to gotomeeting.com/MacBreak. gotomeeting.com/MacBreak and try it free for 30 days. Citrix is committed to making it easy, fast, and secure, and they've done such a great job. Save money. You've got, by the way, free voice over the internet and phone teleconferencing built into this. So you can have your phone, you can be on your conference call, and use your iPad to go to the meeting. It's really cool. GoToMeeting.com/MacBreak. Dane, later in the day, let's have a GoToMeeting and just to try it. I just think it's really great that they launched day of. But I haven't tried it yet, so it's right here on the GoToMeeting tab. GoToMeeting.com/MacBreak. Give it a try today. You're going to love it. MacBreak Weekly, our special episode, day 1 of the iPad era, or something like that. Episode 1 of the iPad era. Andy Ihnatko, Alex Lindsay, John Gruber, Chris Breen. All right, Chris Breen.
Yes.
What's wrong with the iPad?
I've been focusing on media lately. I just did a iPad is iPod article for Macworld, and there are a couple of little things that bug me. One is in the videos application is there's no brightness control. And I've ripped DVDs that I own and put them on there, and I was watching the latest Harry Potter, and it's pretty dark.
But that's dark anyway. I've watched it on a Blu-ray, on a Pioneer Plasma, and I'm still going, really, I can't see. What's going on?
But it's really, really dark.
I know you want to turn it up. I understand.
And so instead of having a brightness control within the video app, you have to dash over to settings, adjust the video brightness there, come back and go, oh, no, actually, that's too bright. Yeah. Let me go back, I do it here, and no, that's not quite right either. So it would be nice to have brightness control directly in the video app.
They do have it in the book reader app, and it really makes a big difference. I find I want to turn it down a lot. It's weird reading a glowing book.
Yeah, and that makes sense because you don't really want a book beaming at you late at night when you're in a dark room. But the same with video, you do want that kind of control over video as well. And then also on a device this size, as much as Apple has been pushing cover flow in the Finder, in iTunes, even on the iPod and the iPod Touch and iPhone, it's not on here. And
Isn't
now
that
I
weird?
actually have. It is weird to me that I actually have room now to do this kind of thing and go, oh, let me look at my album covers. And it's not there. Now, it may be because of this, that you're constantly flipping views. And on the iPhone, when you do that, oh, now I'm in cover flow. But they want to give you that broader, wider experience for the iPod interface. But I would like the option to actually tap a button, bring it up, and say, yes, I actually would like to try cover flow on this device because I think it would look great, particularly when the album art, at least the stuff from iTunes Store, scales up so beautifully. Yeah. It really is gorgeous on here. Stuff you get yourself that's tiny. You know, it's pixelated.
We got a message from Apple, was it about 6 months ago, Dane, saying, do higher res album art for your podcasts. And we just thought, they said, we want to have higher res album art. We just think it's a good idea. Because the max they were doing was 600 by 600. And so we started sending them, what was the resolution we started sending them? Much double. We went even bigger, yeah.
Sometimes they say stuff like, "What would you think if we told you that we wanted 1200 by 1200 album art?" They don't. What would you think about?
What would you think about? What would you say? I didn't think a thing about it until I got the. But yeah, I have to think, Chris, they're going to put cover flow in. It's weird that it's not there. I can't think of any reason not to have it.
It does seem weird to me, again, because I find it so useless everywhere else.
Useless everywhere else. Okay.
I do. I just don't use it ever. And maybe that's gotten through to them. They go, well, yeah, this is a very slick-looking thing, but, nobody uses it.
They bought it. That was something they bought, right? It was
they bought it. So, but I would think that actually on a device where it makes sense, it isn't there. So that seemed strange to me.
Yeah, it does. Mr. Lindsay, what's missing? What would you change? What would you fix?
I think that, for a lot of the applications, I'd say that it was obvious that they made them when they didn't have one.
There's some really there's some really buggy ones. Mostly, it seems like display issues.
Yeah, and also just lots of like user interface stuff that probably made sense when you were clicking it and doesn't make sense so much when you're playing it. But I think that for me, being able to print from it is something that actually has already shown up for me.
Huge.
Yeah, that was like the number one thing for me. Is like I wrote something out, on the plane, and when I got to the house, I wanted to just go on a Wi-Fi network and print, and then there's a little bit of a rigmarole that is required to get it off. And
you need a Mac to print, right?
Yeah, and I think that's gonna show up as a problem for people because I think there are people that are gonna have their Mac at home or at their office or or PC or whatever it is. They're gonna want to sync to it, but they are really not gonna want to carry it around all the time. But they're business people, and it's gonna be this issue. And you'd think, well, maybe I'll just use Google Docs and then try to find someone. But right now, the Google Docs, the way that edits, at least the way it shows up on the iPad right now, isn't. It's not really editable.
I had to download an app for that, and in fact, I downloaded some apps for printing, none of which really worked very well. But I'm sure there will be third-party. If you have a networked printer, I'm sure there'll be third-party solutions to.
There's third-party, but it just seems like it was one of those things that was a little boggling for me that Apple wouldn't just put that in. I mean, they have a great system for that already. When you're on a network and being able to just find a printer on the network and print it, I understand. And I got a lot of memory. I mean, I got the bigger one, but I got a lot of memory. I'm fine with the printer drivers. You can put them on. Whatever I need to do to do that, I'm willing to do it. You can give me a warning about it, but let me choose to be able to print from pages. It just seemed that was a little frustrating for me.
Andy Ihnatko, what? I'm sorry. Andy's having a conversation with a goat. I'm sorry. Andy,
good dog.
Good dog. Hey, do you still have that dog? You were so cagey. You were so funny. I haven't talked to you since then. When did you get the iPad? It was before last week,
I got it. It was before last week. It was the Thursday, the week before the actual release.
And somebody sent me a screenshot of you and said, "Look, there's the box right behind him." Was that the box? Was that actually the box? Did you leave a clue, or was that just an accident?
No, that would not have been true.
I think you were pretty careful.
I can tell you that for a fact because the Apple gave me the iPad, and then the box that has like the keyboard in it, and the box that had that in it, the box that had that in it, and was all inside like an Apple Store bag, so that I could just, if everyone sees, well, I've just been to the Apple Store buying a bunch of stuff. But I really wanted to just hide it completely inside my backpack, and I just couldn't do it. So I took all the boxes, all that stuff came in, we were left behind at my friend's house where I was staying during that little trip. So there was, believe me, there were complete whiteout conditions inside my office that week.
No, you were. If Apple's listening, he was very good. He was very cagey.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me a direct question, I will try to parry it and parry it and parry it. But at some point, I was trying to avoid lying to you and saying that I did not have one.
I don't think you ever lied to us. I think you never lied to us, but you did it in such a way that you made it seem like you didn't want to admit that you didn't have one. You were very clever about it. And
again, not exactly a chimp up here. It's three squirrels doing parallel processing.
You did a great job. You totally fooled me.
Thank you, and I hate for having asked me that question every single week for about a month.
I'm sorry, but we had to.
You had to. You had to do what you had to do. I had to do what we had to do. Let's drink to that and remain friends.
And and I certainly don't hold it against you. I know that's of course what you had to do, and I'm thrilled that you had one. You gave us a great scoop as soon as that embargo was lifted, 9 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. You were on the air here at live.twit.tv. We've got, by the way, the video of that. You have a great unboxing, which I presume you shot before the embargo was lifted and then released on YouTube then.
Yep.
And then on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/twit, we also have Andy's first review with Alex. You and Alex did a review because I was out of the studio. So thank you, because you gave us a very early review, so we really appreciate that.
I think thanks to Andy, I think that was some of the most thorough coverage of the iPad launch the day when it was available. And I was really having fun, just googling over Andy.
Oh yeah. So the Apple the case arrived, the Apple case. Boy, this is a piece of crap. Okay, just thought I'd throw that out there. It's like this is ridiculous. Somebody posted it's like rubbing your iPad with ashes to put it in this thing. I have a case from Griffin that they sent. I've been getting cases from everybody. This is a pretty nice kind of faux leather sleeve that goes around it. That makes it. What's nice? It doesn't look like an iPad. It looks like you're holding a folio. This has got an.
I like the one. I guess someone made one that makes it look like a moleskin.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I could.
But this does respond to the one thing which I don't like, and you're right, John. You can put it flat, but I do want it tilted a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think the Apple case does have that little tilt kickstand.
Yeah, that's how I used it to write my review on it. Is I have it in that case propped up in landscape mode with a Bluetooth keyboard right in front of it, and it's a perfect angle. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, and
I think for hosting shows, I think that little propped up angle is like perfect. That reminds me of the Tech TV set, with the little monitors all pointed up. I was like, this could make it a lot easier.
I had the same reaction. Okay, Andy, what don't you like?
Okay. There are two holistic things that system-wide that I'd like to change. Number one, I really wish that the built-in apps were a little bit more ambitious. It seems as though they were just trying to scale up the iPhone apps without the awareness that, gee, I've got this big screen, gee, I've got a typable keyboard, and gee, I probably have higher expectations of this device than I have of my iPhone. I'm very, very surprised, for instance, that in the iPod app, I can't simply tap button on this device to say, please refresh every single podcast that you see on this device right now.
Yeah, isn't that shocking?
It still includes the... Yeah, well, not shocking, but it just seems like such an obvious missed opportunity. You can still do the thing where if you have that listed in the list of podcasts, there's still that little item at the bottom that says "Go get more podcasts," in which case it will load in the iTunes app and download it from there. But geez, that's not what I want to be doing. Like in the last half hour before I got to check out of my hotel and make it to my plane. And that's sort of across the board. Most like Safari can also be more muscular that way. The way that I would much rather have like a split pane manager for managing my bookmarks. I'd like to have a much better way of managing multiple web pages at the same time. That's not a multitasking issue. That's all happening within this one app. It does look like it's a 1.0, but you don't say that in terms of it's not functional. It's just 1.0 in terms of they were just desperate to get this thing done, get this thing stable, ship it, and then go back to see their husbands and wives and children and pets for the first time in 3 months. I think that we'll see the next iteration. We'll start to see like more blooming features. Oh, yeah. The second thing I really want to see is that this thing really wants to have an application on it just called Flash Drive. That's nothing but a folder for your personal documents. And there are different ways to get documents off of your desktop or out of the world and into this device where you can do useful things with them. But nothing is as useful as simply saying, here is an application. Once you have this application running, you can connect to, you can get stuff from your iDisk and put it in there. You can mount it via USB and can copy documents on there. It can be a central storage house for a clearinghouse for when you have documents that are just there to be stored and viewed. You can just toss a PDF of your flight plans on there, tap it just to use the quick view feature just to read it, then close it once again. But also as a way of using that sort of as a way station, so that you copied a whole bunch of files from your desktop before you left home, or you copied a whole bunch of files from your Dropbox or from your Box.net account, and that's where you're keeping them so that they're permanently on your local storage, so you don't need to connect to the internet to get access to. But then there comes a time when you want to open it up in Pages or your other word processor, and that's when you simply go, okay, I don't want to just read this, I want to edit this, tap and open it in the preferred document. It's such a there are a bunch of different applications that are trying to get that get that mind state. And just like you with printing, I've downloaded 2 or 3 different apps like that, including some of the most popular and useful apps that do that on the iPhone, and they don't really work all that well. And then I won't mention names because I think that they really rushed to get these things out, and that was proved when I emailed the developers directly, and they said, yeah, that doesn't really work the way we wanted to. We really wanted to have this out by April 1st. We're coming out with an update in 2 weeks now that we have an iPad to play with. But that doesn't seem like the sort of thing that a third party should have to cover. It seems like a basic core function of the iPad. I don't miss the fact that it doesn't have an open file system, but this is obviously a gap that they need to cover.
Have you tried Goodreader? Because that seems to... I've been using that as kind of a stopgap for... and it's interesting to watch it rise up to the top of the paid. You know, it's such a kind of outlier, and all of a sudden it's number 2 on the paid apps list.
Yeah, I mean, I've got high hopes for AirSharing Pro because it has the full suite of functions that I would want, including printing, including connecting to any sort of a cloud storage system almost any cloud storage system you can name. I just wish that we just need someone to get to the top of the hill really, really quickly. Box.net has an interesting approach though, because they have open APIs for their cloud storage, and they're marketing them, promoting them pretty aggressively in the developer community. That means that when QuickOffice or any other third-party Microsoft Office suite gets released, they can incorporate built-in support for Box.net, for instance. So if you're using Box as your cloud storage, you don't even need to do any sort of an import-export through a Box.net app. You can simply open up your Office suite, do import button, and there will be a tab for Box.net. Tap on Box.net. Great. Here's a list of all your Box.net documents from your desktop, and just open up your Word file. Right. That's what's possible with all these APIs. It is a glaring hole.
And it's early.
Just to wind this up.
Oh, go ahead.
And it's early. Like I said, I'm sorry. I got off on a bit of a rant there, but just to wind it up, I've always said that I think that there are going to be 2 different editions of the iPad. The iPad that exists today when it actually ships, and one that exists 3 or 4 months from now, when all the developers finally have not only their hands on actual iPads, but they have a time to really figure out what versions of their apps really make sense and how to build them properly. Even if they don't update the operating system, Apple, for the next 3 or 4 months, just the fact that in a couple months' time we're going to see the first generation of fully mature apps for the device is going to transform how useful we find this thing.
Somebody, I'm getting chat room updates on a variety of subjects, including the fact that the Dodo case, DODOCASE, is the case that is the Moleskine case. It's made of bamboo. It looks beautiful. Somebody would think you have a jumbo moleskine, basically. And
is it cruelty-free bamboo?
It is, in fact. They say cruelty-free, and or something like that. Environmentally friendly. And somebody's already. This is a good idea, according to Engadget. Mounted an iPad into a car dashboard.
Now, I think this is something that they should the car. I mean, we've talked about this on the show before, but I really think this is something the car manufacturer should make as an option. Just leaving the ability to do it. I'd pay the same amount that I was going to pay for the GPS unit for them just to build that into it. So and I guess it's a custom company down in Santa Clarita.
Soundman, yeah. You want to hear something really, really scary? The guys who do MotionX GPS Drive, like my favorite car app for the car navigation app, they told me that they are officially working on an iPad version of it, which could be the sickest, most awesomest thing ever. I cannot wait to see it.
A number of really great app upgrades like IMDb, which has really done a nice job. It's now become my go-to movie application, just instantly. Evernote immediately updated. And I love seeing these companies update for free and do universal apps. That's one of the things that's really kind of griping me is the number of companies, including Apple's own FileMaker, that are charging, they're back again, charging a full amount for an iPad version of the application. Now, admittedly, $5 or $10 isn't a lot for an application, but it just seems like I already bought Bento for the desktop, bought Bento for the iPhone. Now, and really, you want me to buy Bento again for the iPad?
Well,
Leo, I've got a bone to pick with you on that one.
Okay.
Last time I was on, you and Alex were on and on about Plants vs. Zombies.
Same thing. We got to buy it again.
So I got it, and my daughter's addicted to it. The first thing when she gets the iPad, she says, well, where's Plants vs. Zombies? And I said, well, I'm sure they don't have an iPad. Oh, they do.
Oh, they do.
$10.
$10.
And I got it, and it's gorgeous.
It's worth it, I guess.
I not regret doing it, but still.
I love the companies that do the in-place upgrades, and so we know it's doable because a number of companies have done this, and they've made them really look great, and they work nice. And I think
especially if you're going to if you're going to charge a premium for the iPad, I feel like
you got to give us more.
Well, if we're going to pay a premium for the iPad, I do feel like we ought to get the iPhone version with it. Even if it's not downloaded at the same time. I mean, a lot of us have both. I mean, I think probably I would venture to say that 60 to 70, maybe even 90% of the people who bought an iPad already have an iPhone. That have it.
Somebody did a survey, and I think, who knows if it was accurate, but somebody did a survey of people coming out of Apple stores, and it was like 66%. Had an iPhone or an iPod Touch.
Yeah, that seems about right. Yeah. Okay, so Alex, we've got your gripe. We've got Andy's gripe. Chris, we got your gripes. I think it's John Gruber's. What's missing on the iPad, John? What would you like to see fixed?
I think that this isn't really about the iPad overall. It's about the iWork suite. So I don't know if that counts. I mean, but I think that it's a big enough part of Apple's announcement, and it gets to Andy's thing about ambitious apps, because those are the three that are, to me, the most ambitious. They're very ambitious apps, and they definitely. I mean, every developer I know is studying them with complete focus, because they're more or less the example. This is how you do an ambitious app. The problem I have with them is nothing to do with the actual editing them itself, which is brilliant. It's how do you edit the same document on your iPad that you've got at your Mac, and the workflow, it seems to me, it's incredibly convoluted. You can share files when you sync to iTunes with USB, but you're making copies of them. And I thought, well, maybe that's what iWork.com is for. That's why they did the website, iWork.com. But it's even worse there. There you send something you share it to iWork.com, and you're effectively exporting your document. A copy of it goes to iWork.com, and it's really intended for sharing with other people, because every time you do it, it gives you an email form, and you have to type somebody's email. You can leave it blank and just hit share, and it'll only notify you. Then you get an email with a URL, and then you can switch from your iPad to your Mac, click the URL, and download it, and then open it on your Mac. But now you've got two copies of the document. You're not editing the same thing. So if you want to do, like what I would like to do with this thing I'm writing in Pages is just have it work the way IMAP email works, have it work the way Mobile Me contacts and calendars work, where there's some sort of online, I hesitate to use the word cloud, but something in the cloud where it takes care of syncing changes for something that you want to share.
I mean, don't
nothing
think,
like that.
Don't we think that really Apple has to take, has to do something that's more like Google Docs?
Right, and that is exactly it. Is that in addition to the fact that when you use these iWork apps on the iPad, to me, if you really, really use them, and you're not, unless you really plan to do nothing except work on your iPad, you never plan to use your Mac, which is not going to be the case. It cries out for an answer to this problem, and even worse for Apple is that their number one competitor, Google, has an answer to this problem, Google Documents, where the definitive location for your documents is in the cloud, and the software is a client. It needs to be more like client server rather than it's almost really the workflow is almost like the old floppy nets from the 80s, where you didn't even have a network in your office and you would just copy it to a floppy, give it to your friend, and then he'd have another copy of the file, and you'd be like, well, what's the date on your version of the file? I've got Wednesdays.
We had the conversation just this morning about that, where I was like, we got a numbers document that's keeping track of a bunch of the Pixel Core challenges that we're launching, and I was like, just get it into Google Docs so I can make sure that we're not switching up. We kept on switching up the versions. I was like, I don't want to think about this anymore. Just put it in Google Docs. We'll figure it out.
You can't do that with the iWork apps, and I think you absolutely need to. I mean, otherwise it's like a toy.
All I was going to say is I think that there's an opportunity for something superior, because I don't really like using the web page to go to Google Docs. What I want is I want an interface that is network aware, like iTunes. I don't want to go to Amazon.com to buy music. I want to go to iTunes to buy music. In the same way, I don't want to go. I want to be able to use Numbers and Pages, but just have that feeding into I don't want to use the browser with Google Docs. I mean, I use it, and then that's what every new document that we starts in Google Docs. We get all the text the way we want it, and then we bring it into Pages. And it's.
I'm using a third-party app called Office Squared Pro that lets me hook up to Mobile Me and my iDisk and to Google Docs, and I'm able to open files from either one of those. And it also works with a WebDAV server. But you open it up from within there, and you can view it. You can edit Google Docs directly in there. I mean, it's a pretty decent interface to it. So that's a third-party
I'm not saying
solution.
that it's easy.
I think Apple should make it easier, though. I agree with you.
Right. I'm not saying it's an easy problem, but there are companies that have solved it. So, I mean, everybody I know with an iPhone uses one of the apps that's like, I use Simple Note. I know a lot of people use Evernote. Yep. But they have different interfaces and they're different styles, but they fundamentally do the same thing, where you can have these just plain text snippets where you create one on your iPhone, and then the next time you're sitting at your Mac, there it is. And if you add a couple of items to it on your Mac, the next time you look at it on your iPhone, there those changes are, and you don't have to worry about copies of files. It just syncs, and Apple has done this with contacts and calendars with Mobile Me, but they haven't done it with anything else, and it really sticks out like a sore thumb when you use these iWork apps.
Yeah, it could be more elegant.
My one other gripe is that I don't think that the resolution on the iPad is high enough. If the pixels per inch just comes out to 132 or 133, and the iPhone is 163 or 162. Huh. I think that especially like when you're reading the books, it's. I mean, maybe I'm just a picky person with typography, but to me they looks a little bit too smudgy. Like, I would love to see a next generation model a year from now or 2 years from now with same size screen, same physical size, but more pixels per inch.
Right. I think you'd agree with that too, Alex.
Not just for video, but just for text.
But even for HD video, I mean, it's 1024 by 768, so it's not wide enough to do 720p.
I think that was a cost. I definitely think that.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely a cost thing. I mean, that's the one thing too. I mean, that's absolutely one of the when the starting point of this whole thing was definitely let's try to sell this thing for like $500. Right. And so of course they had to make compromises. And everybody knows that Apple makes high quality products, but they're sort of carving out this weird. They're not premium priced anymore. They're consumer priced, but very, very high quality. I mean, the thing feels great. I mean, it has this. The glass feels great. The aluminum feels great. The seams along where the glass meets the aluminum are just perfect. The buttons click with just a wonderful tactile feel. But in other ways, they absolutely made decisions that were all about cost. The fact that it only has 256 megabytes of RAM, cost. That's a cost issue.
And no headphones, no polishing cloth, and the thing gets smudgy, so you could certainly use one.
And no calculator. Where's the calculator?
Well, you don't want to calculate what kind of compromises they make, so they don't want to make it easy for you to do.
They did leave off a number of applications that come with the iPhone. I'm not sure why. I guess they just ran out of time. I
have to think that those applications are really good for a small form device, rather than. I mean, some people said, well, they're third parties that offer these sort of things. So
yeah, I bought
get the third party option. But if I want to check my stocks, my iPhone is perfect for that, or my iPod Touch is perfect because I don't want a big screen of that kind of information. I'm not a weather geek, so I don't need that kind of stuff too.
Bloomberg was pretty nice when it updated for the iPhone, and they really did a nice job of.
I'm waiting for the app Day Trader.
Yeah, you could probably do that, couldn't you? I mean, I think they've done a really nice job of using the real estate on the Bloomberg app. But you're right. I mean, Apple's stock app was kind of a joke all along, anyway. My gripe, I think, is about email. It's so close. I really like it, except that it's so hard. I need a unified inbox. I have 3 different accounts, and I've got to go back to check mail in the different accounts. It just seems like such a simple thing that they could have fixed. I do like the Reader app. I don't have your problem with it, John. I just, for the show, I downloaded it and read all, for a couple of hours last night. It is a little weird to read a glowing box. I mean, it's a little disconcerting initially, but it doesn't seem particularly hard on the eyes, especially if you turn the brightness down. I have to say, I'm probably going to end up using the Kindle app. Kudos to Amazon and Apple. Kudos to Amazon for updating it for the iPad and making it pretty usable, and to Apple for not blocking it. Because frankly, the Kindle store is a better store still than the iBook store, and I have a lot of Kindle books, and I can read them.
Yeah, Apple says that at launch they had 60,000 books in the iBook store, and then of course have to ask the follow-up question. Well, how many of those are Gutenberg? And they said that'd be 30,000 of those.
Half of them. Yeah.
And of course. Yeah, and then of course I get in touch with Amazon, and they're more than happy to tell me they have nearly 500,000 independent titles.
Yeah.
But I really think between iBooks and the Kindle, it's the 2 devices it's a push. It's definitely more pleasant to read something with a higher resolution. It's definitely more pleasant to read something with such higher contrast. The glossy screen is also a problem in many situations. In a nice, if you're indoors like this, even with a bright window on the side here, it's not a problem. There might be 1 or 2 angles in which you can't really see the screen, but if you're sitting on a train and you've got the window seat, you can't really tell the conductor, "Can you please have the train swerve about 20 degrees to the left?"
It's too bright.
But it makes up for it by the fact that how many times have I been using my Kindle and I have to turn on a light or get a book light, or it's a red-eye flight on the plane. I have to turn on the big blast furnace halogen light on top just because I want to read a book. The backlighting, I think, compensates. They're about the same readability, but in different situations. That's all.
I read in bed a lot, so this is a great thing for me that I don't have to turn on a light and wake my wife up. I can read in bed, and it's just a little bit of a glow. And by the way, in the dark, you do turn it almost all the way down. You don't need a lot of light.
Well, and I think that the exciting thing about what the iPad presents is where books are going to go, not so much where they are now. Reading them, we can talk about whether they read well or not, but I think that elements in some of those types of books and what we're seeing in bits of some of the magazine tests, we're going to leave the idea of static text pretty quickly, I think. I think for the next generation.
Well, even just having color is pretty nice. I was surprised. I have a Objective-C programming book that I wanted to get on all the platforms. It's not available in the iBook store, so I couldn't really compare it. But I did have it on the Kindle, and it turns out it's in color. The figures are in color. The screenshots are in color. I would never have known. It's not in color in the print book, which I also have. It's not in color on the Kindle, but it is in color on the iPad. That's kind of nice. I like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I need animation,
Absolutely.
you know? What I'd really like,
I'm curious to
a
see how
little window
flexible
where
the
I could
output's
type in
format.
Objective-C code as I'm reading the book. But that's, you know. I have to say, I'm motivated.
And modify the book's behavior.
Yeah, I have to say I am very motivated. I know, Alex, you're going to be going to Big Nerd Ranch at some point soon. I don't know if we're going to be able to do a Twit event there because I think we're kind of busy in the month of June. But I'm definitely going to go because you want to write software for this, don't you? This iPad. You really think
absolutely.
It gets
I'm
the
so
mind
excited
going.
to go
Like,
down
what
there.
could I do with this? You know.
Yeah, I'm so excited to take the Big Nerd class and really dig into that. I've been talking to the guys there, and I just you want to play with it, even if it's not something I'm going to sell. I just want to have little apps that I can kind of play with and build and put them on, and of crazy ideas that I have. It's just that it's just a great palette to play with.
What about the complaint some people had, and then we're going to move on to iPhone 4.0, but what about the complaint some people had that no platforms really succeeded if you couldn't develop directly on that platform? Is that the case?
Yeah, because the iPhone hasn't worked well at all.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
It's been a total failure.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
I mean,
even the Macintosh in 1984, you couldn't write programs on the Macintosh. You had to have Elisa, and Elisa was like, I don't know, $14,000, something like that. I forget when the first version of MPW came out, but I don't think it was until like 1986.
That's right, John. You're right. Yeah.
Well, I do think
and the Mac did all right.
I do think Apple has a lot of work to do with the store. It looks like they're finally starting to separate the iPad and the iPhone stuff. For a while, there was a little switch, and they've already kind of gotten to it. You can get in two different worlds because, like, when you start searching from an iPad perspective, I don't really care what's on the iPhone, that's available. I think a lot of developers are a little frustrated because they, they're still getting it organized, and so a lot of them have been kind of buried underneath. It's just very hard to get to the surface. Everyone kind of rushed in. Very quickly, and so I think there is that typical. I mean, the same frustration we've seen in other parts of the App Store is that it's very hard to find. You don't explore. I think that's the big thing right now with the App Store is you don't explore in the App Store. You find out about it on the web, and then there's a direct link to the App Store. But you don't. It's very hard to kind of wander around through the App Store to find something new, other than the top 100.
Same thing with the iTunes Store. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true, and it's because I know that because I've been spending every 5 minutes in the App Store looking for updated apps.
Even like an issue of SkyMall is a better browsing interface than the App Store.
That's true.
I don't know. It really is not a good browsing interface.
No, yeah, it's really focused on charts. I think that's the iTunes
charts and search.
Charts and
That's
search,
it.
and that's really a function of the fact that it's a iTunes derivative. You know, that's how music works. All right, we're going to take another break. Come back. We got to talk about what you might expect from iPhone 4.0. I can't believe it. Finally, the focus has moved off iPad and onto another platform. And even some rumors there might be a new MacBook and MacBook Pro refresh in the works. We'll talk about that, too, in just a little bit. Before we do, though, I want to remind everybody, if it's time to make a website, it's time to visit Squarespace.com. Squarespace is the place to make beautiful websites. It's web hosting as well as software, so you get kind of the best of both worlds. As little as $8 a month, you can make gorgeous sites that don't look like they're all cookie-cuttered out either, which I really like. Squarespace starts with templates. I think they have a dozen, really, something like that, really gorgeous templates, but you can immediately make them your own. And if you want an example, go to squarespace.com/MacBreak and take a look at the example sites. They've got blogs, portfolios, businesses, and each one is unique, one of a kind, gorgeous. And you never look at it and say, as you would sometimes with Drupal or WordPress, oh, I know what the content management system is there. They're all unique and gorgeous. A lot of photographers use it because of their great photography capabilities. A lot of businesses are using Squarespace.com. Even bloggers. It's not just a blogging platform, but what a great blogging platform. I'll make you a deal. If you go to squarespace.com/MacBreak, you can try this free. Import all of your blog contents and export it too. You're never tied to a Squarespace site. They've got import and export tools for all the major blogging platforms. WordPress, Movable Type, TypePad, and Blogger. Seamlessly import and export. Give it a try for 2 weeks. No credit card needed. I mean, it's absolutely free. You can see what it can do for you. Play with the site templating. Play with the editing. A great iPhone app. I'm sure they're going to be updating that for the iPad. That'll make it the ultimate blogging platform for the iPad. Really just gorgeous. Try it free for 2 weeks, squarespace.com/MacBreak. And if you decide you want to set up a Squarespace site, again, as little as $8 a month, that includes hosting and all the software and the stats and the everything, the iPhone app. If you use the coupon code MacBreak, you'll get 10% off for life. For life. That could add up to quite a bit. Squarespace.com/MacBreak. We love these guys. They really care about their customers. They do a great job. Dane and Anthony and the gang. Davin. And they've got a great platform. Squarespace.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. So iPhone 4.0 Thursday. Andy, you got an invitation, but I think you're stuck in Colorado. You're not going to come out to Cupertino for that, are you?
Unfortunately, no. I'm here in the great state of Colorado, the mile-high city of Boulder, outside of the other mile-high city of Denver.
I'll be honest. Just because I wasn't invited, I'm not saying this just because I wasn't invited. I'm not. I'm really not. I don't think I'd go anyway. Oh, wait a minute. I got an invitation. I think I'll be going. No.
I'll say it would be a tough one for me, only because I feel as though it's going to be iPhone 4.0. I know it's going to be something I'm going to want to cover and write about. I'm not convinced at this stage that I'd get a hands-on experience.
Is somebody going by you with a squeaky perambulator right now?
Yeah, we got a dog. We just discovered that if you bite into this orange ball, it makes nice noises.
Oh dear! Oh dear!
I thought it was the ice cream truck.
Hey, for the ice cream truck, you wouldn't see me in the frame.
Well, it's interesting that they said iPhone 4.0. It sounds like it's a software announcement, not a hardware announcement. Is that?
Oh, I definitely. It's the same schedule as the last 2 years.
So they don't announce the hardware till right before June?
I would guess at WWDC, but they haven't announced WWDC dates yet. So Who knows?
So this is. They're doing it at the town hall in Cupertino. Which is not a big venue. What could we possibly expect for iPhone 4.0? Somebody asked me that, and I was trying to think. There's a few UI tweaks maybe, but do you think you said multitasking, John?
Yeah, in some form. I'm not quite sure everything. I'm not quite sure about the details. I do know. I wouldn't say I know, but I kind of know that I think audio apps are going to be third-party audio apps are going to probably be pretty happy with iPhone OS 4.0.
I would love to have Pandora have parity with the iPod so I could listen to my Pandora music. You're absolutely right. Or Last.fm or Slacker.
And I think that'll be a big one. I wonder, but I think then that also means, though, that, and this is just speculation on my part, that if they're going to do anything with multitasking, then I think that it's got to be time that they take a look at the whole home screen UI, Springboard, whatever you want to call it. That everybody is starting to get frustrated with it, and Apple's marketing, even just to typical consumers, is about the number of apps in the App Store. So I think they're really, it's not just power users or nerds, people like us. I think even typical people are starting to run into frustrations with the interface for getting to and switching between apps that are many, many screens apart. I have no idea what the answer is to that, but we're still, you really do. You sit there and go through 9 screens on your iPhone, and it really, you can still kind of tell that you're using a home screen interface that dates back to the original no third-party apps iPhone, one screen with 16 icons on it interface.
Right.
So I would hope to see, a refresh of the home screen interface. I definitely think we're going to see something related to background tasks.
Okay. You have reason to think that? You have a.
I have good reason to think that.
Okay.
I think that there's probably some developers of very popular third-party iPhone applications who are toiling away in some secret dungeon in Cupertino as we talk.
Got it. What else would we like to see? Andy, you're back. Thank you for killing the dog or whatever it is you did.
No, I just went, who's your good
Who's your
girl?
daddy?
She came over here and walked away from that. She's such a good girl.
And then you ate the ball and it's gone. 4.0. What else? Anybody? Any surprises?
I think you get your unified inbox.
Yes, Steve said that, right? He said it in
Yeah, Steve said, in one of his one word.
He said, "Yep."
The leaking guy there at Apple keeps leaking these details, and yep was one. Oh, we did that show. So that's unified inbox, and I agree with John. Something needs to be done about Springboard. When you jailbreak your phone, you have categories is one of the applications you can use, and punches everything into a folder, but it's really slow, and it's kind of an ugly way to have to go. But there does need to be some kind of hierarchy there so that you can get to those, I don't know how many, 80 apps that you have on an iPhone. Audio streaming certainly is something people are already asking for on the iPad, so you want to be able to have that kind of sending media across to other devices, and maybe wireless syncing to go along with it. And if that means that you're going to suck up your battery more quickly, maybe that becomes the selling point for the next iPhone. Is that, oh, by the way, we have much better battery life in these things, and so now this other stuff is possible.
So there's 11 pages of 16 icons each. Is that 176 icons? Is that what it is? Somebody actually called the radio show and said, "I have more than 176 applications. What can I do?" I said,
"You know what? You can sync them. They go there.
They go there. You just can't see them, and you have to search for them.
And you can never get to them, even if you delete other apps to make room. They don't slide into place. They stay. It's like limbo. It's like
12.
I didn't.
It's like these scary stories your uncle used to tell me about.
But you can't. Somebody told me you can. You go to the search thing and you type in the name. You can launch them.
Right.
So, I didn't realize it took me a couple of weeks to realize that I had more apps than there were pages, and it took me a couple of weeks to realize, because I gave up on trying to find them. I just use search. I don't the ones that I use most often are in the first 2 pages, and the rest of them are just this holding category of their stuff, and I'm just going to search for it because I'm not going to look for it anymore. And I definitely think that. So I didn't even know that they were in limbo for a long time until I tried to show someone, and I was trying to find it, and I realized I hadn't been looking for a long time.
Yeah. Unified inbox, background processes.
Here's another thing, though, about here's just something to think about. The march of progress. So at what point does Apple stop supporting the original iPhone and iPod Touch? Is this going to be the first release where they say, here's the new OS, it's a free update, but only for those of you who've bought, say, the 3G or later? I think that's probably a good bet. And it'd be interesting to see how many people with their original iPhones, who've gotten 3 years of free OS updates, start crying about how they've been ripped off. Or if maybe they'll get it, but the new features don't like if there's multitasking, it only works on the 3GS and later,
right?
Something like that,
right?
Yeah, and they've done that already.
They did with the iPod Touch, right?
Well, with some of the stuff, like it only works for the 3G and later. So that's an interesting proposition, to actually cut off the OS at that point. Right. So it's been out a couple of years, so here. And I think you're right. I think it will take a tenth of a second before we see the first gripe about why did they rip me off, and I've only had this thing since the first day.
But it's going to happen eventually.
What?
There's no way that they're going to get into a situation where 4 years from now they're still doing OS updates for old iPhones. Sure.
It has to happen. Yeah.
Well, and I think we have a pattern of that. I think that Apple doesn't really put up with that for very long. Usually I'm surprised at how many computers actually are backwards compatible. They'll cut that stuff off, and then there'll be a class action suit, and then they'll be right.
What about?
I'll be
Go ahead, Andy.
I'll be combing that announcement most carefully for clues as to what the next version of the hardware is going to be.
Yes, that was my next question. What about hardware?
That's got to be, the fact that they're doing this now has to be a tip-off that they're going to be introducing a new phone that has features that must be supported by software, and that.
Okay, so that's a cat or an iguana or what? What other animals do you have in there?
It is the scariest dog toy ever, because it is a realistic-looking bird that shrieks in pain when bitten into by a dog.
That's what you want. That's what you want.
And bleeds.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's an Audubon bird. I'm sorry. But my hosts are very, very kind and to put me up for an entire week. So I'm like, did she get a bird? Holy yes. Okay.
No, it's just a rubber bird.
So I'm sorry. What I was
hardware.
going to say is that
hardware.
the reason Hardware, exactly. The reason why they're making an announcement early, it must be that they want to be able to release this information and the development tools to developers on that same day, so that by the time this phone with the new hardware and the new features comes out, all the different features are going to be wired up for it, including, I'm guessing that multitasking is not going to just apply to every single app that's released, that the apps have to be written to a certain specification and a certain guideline and be savvy enough and talk to the OS enough about its needs to make that function work. So it's going to be very cool to find out about iPhone OS 4.0, but you thought that speculation about the iPad was just never-ending and dull as dishwater. Wait till we start talking about, okay, so it says that there's a new NS Camera Live .cs tool in the library. Does that mean there's going to be a front-facing camera for video conferencing?
Right.
A couple of other notes, and then we're going to get to our picks of the week, which I'm sure will be fairly iPad-focused. Stories ranged from 200,000 to 300,000 to 700,000 units sold over the weekend. I'm not sure what the true answer is. I'm thinking 300,000 is about right. Anybody have a thought about the higher numbers?
Apple claimed Apple did a news release on it and said it was over 300,000.
Okay,
and that was first day, but I don't think that included the 3G units.
Right.
No, it did not. It only included the ones that actually shipped.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good first day. 300,000 units. Will demand continue, or is it going to taper off until the end of the month when the 3Gs start shipping?
That's interesting.
I think a lot of
remember
people,
that those are.
Go ahead, Andy.
Go ahead. Although I'm saying those are all 300,000 people who bought the sight unseen. Remember,
Right.
So if that starts to tail way down, when people start actually seeing them in their friends have them and they see them in hotels and on airplanes, they realize that, ooh, that's not nearly as nice as I thought. That'll be significant. But on the other side, now we have 300,000 iPad evangelists out there. I guarantee you that if I had a dozen iPads back in my car yesterday, I would have sold all 12 of them just to the people that I showed it to at the conference. for a small, just a handling fee.
Yes.
Tiny handling fee.
They really should. I think that's how it's going to play out. Is obviously, most people don't buy something sight unseen, not for $500-600. I think once people see this, I think they're gonna jump at it. That's just the reaction I've had from the people who've seen mine. Is if there was like an app that they had on it where they could tap it and put their information in to get one, and you'd get some kind of referral credit, it would be like a Ponzi scheme. You'd make your money back in a week.
They could just pay me in iPads. You know,
right? They should just they could just pay you in iPads and then you sell them out. I mean, but they really do. People use it and they want to buy one.
Well, and what's crazy is that usually, I was really afraid that I was going to overhype it to myself. I've been talking about it, I've been excited about it for years, and I had this big imagination. And there are while there's a couple of things that I can complain about related to it, there are so many things about it that are just better than I expected. It works better than I expected, and I think that they've kind of gotten over that hump, over that hill that they had to get over. That we didn't go, well, it's not as good, but it's still great, but it's not as good as we thought it would be, and it's a very, very stable, very strong version 1, and I think that's going to really yield a lot of sales.
And, of course, eventually international sales.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about we haven't.
Right. At some point. Some reports that people were having Wi-Fi issues. Anybody here having Wi-Fi issues? Apple has a knowledge base article they posted yesterday with suggestions for a remedy.
I've seen wild fluctuations in my Wi-Fi coverage, especially when I have a MiFi sitting right behind it, and it goes up and down. But I haven't seen any change in performance. So I mean, the display has changed for me, but I haven't noticed that it's been dropping off.
Some say that if it's an Apple-only network, these problems don't exist. I don't know. I'm getting. I had 1 bar and it just switched to 5 bars as if it knew I was talking about it. So. And I haven't moved anything. Nothing's changed. It just kind of fluctuates. On the other hand, I've never lost connectivity. Some people have complained also about repeated requests for authentication. I don't, when you get a new device, I think you're going to see stuff like this. I don't know how widespread this problem is. Also, somebody said in the chat room that people had reported overheating. I think that seems unlikely. This is one of the few devices I've ever seen that doesn't get warm at all.
Yeah. I think what they're talking about is that there's reports that if you leave it in the sun, like in the backseat of a car, or you're outside and it's in direct sunlight, it does. And then if it reaches a certain temperature, it does give you an alert that says your iPad is too hot and you should shut it off. But I don't think that's from use indoors. Right. I mean, it really does. It's unbelievable how it doesn't get hot.
Well, and the fact that Apple's own case is basically a wetsuit. Tells you that it can't get too hot. I mean, this thing is rubber. It's like sealing it in rubber. There's no ventilation at all. Andy?
Yeah, I'm definitely heating up my iPad more than the iPad's heating up me. That's the first for computing devices.
It's pretty amazing, actually, that they could make this thing run as cool as it is. Again, I think perhaps that's the key is the A4. Did anybody look at the teardown that iFixit did?
Yeah.
What's
fascinating
stuff.
stuff.
One of the things they said is there's room for a camera. I don't know if that's true or not, but
well, the whole thing. I mean, really, you look at the inside, and it's just a piece of glass and a battery. I mean, everything else is so tiny. I mean, there's speculation that a lot of those parts are really could just fit into a future iPhone as is.
Wow.
It's just all battery in there.
That's pretty impressive.
Which I think was the key, because when you look at like the HP that they're talking about coming out, it's $525 or something, and it has 5 hours of battery life. It's going to be. I mean, I think they definitely focused on the right things that are going to make it very difficult to compete with.
Right. I think that they focused on were responsiveness. I mean, everything you touch on this thing makes your iPhone feel like it's not responsive to your touch. I mean, it's just so super responsive to touch. Responsiveness, battery life, and keep it at $500,
right?
And then build it out from there.
You think
the battery life is unlike any Apple.
It's amazing
big computer they've ever had.
Do you think version 2 it will be a year from now and it will have a camera?
I'd be very surprised if there wasn't a camera. I mean, just very, in the next version. And
having used it now, I feel like it ought to have a camera. At first, for a long time, I thought, no, it's a content consumption device. It doesn't need a camera, but now I feel like, I wouldn't mind having a camera in this thing.
I think that the two things. I mean, I would love to see a camera. I'd love to see. I mean, and the thing is for people who haven't bought one yet, I would definitely. And we bought them because this is what we cover. But I would say that if I was going to buy my only iPad, I'd probably get the 3G version. I think that I noticed missing it almost immediately. I couldn't find my Wi-Fi, and it was like within an hour, I was like, I need to be connected.
I think you really do. I think you really do want full-time connection. In fact, I've ordered a 3G.
Yeah,
for that very reason.
I think it probably depends on whether you have an iPhone or an iPod Touch. If you have an iPod Touch, which I don't, you're used to then being only having connection when you're on Wi-Fi.
Right.
If you have an iPhone, which I do, this feels so much like an iPhone. It just has that same feel that I just assumed. I mean, I was the same way. The UPS guy came to my house at 10:30, and I went to lunch with my son at like 12:30, and we're like, well, let's take the iPad. And I was like one step out the door when I went. I was like, hey, let's check Twitter, and I was like, I got nothing. And I know that it doesn't have 3G, but it just feels like I should. It feels like I should have internet everywhere. It really feels like bizarre that I don't.
I do think I'm going to build into my Apple case, because I don't think I'm going to keep my Apple case. I'm going to get another one. But as my travel case, I feel like I want to build a little pocket for my MiFi that I can just kind of slide into the back of it, so that it's just at least getting. I'm at least going to get Velcro for the back, so that I can just slap it onto the back, because I think that I'm going to be using it all the time.
This Griffin case does have a little slots for business cards, and I bet you could stick a Wi-Fi.
I wonder, and that's the other thing too, is I wonder whether it's better to get the 3G iPad or to get a MiFi. I mean, I feel like at this point I have to get one or the other. I mean,
right. I've been using the MiFi.
I took the train to New York. I mean, although those of us, Andy and I both probably ride the train quite a lot. I just can't. I mean, I can't imagine having the iPad on a train and not having internet. I mean, it's just I jump off the train and kill myself.
Andy, what are you showing there? What's that?
No, I was just trying. A friend of mine is really handy. She like sews just about everything. So she made me a iPad slipcase, and at my request, it has a integrated MiFi pocket. And it's really cool because I can't take out my own MiFi because that's what's powering this this webcast. But it's slightly translucent, so
you can see the green light.
You can actually art and flow. Right. So when I'm done with it, I just don't even. I never even take the slipcase. I just simply press the button through the cloth to turn it on. When I'm done, press the button to turn it off again. The other good feature, and really, I hope she opens an Etsy store to sell these, because this is exactly what you should do. It's lined with flannel.
Oh,
So
it cleans the
turn it
screen
inside
as
out.
you use it.
Exactly. It becomes a cleaning cloth.
Oh, that's
Now, you'd
nice.
think you'd be charging $19.95, but if you act right now, we'll give you a second iPad ShamWow.
You really
That-
do
that-
want to
this is
keep
like
it.
Seattle.
You do want to have room in your case for a cleaning cloth too, because you don't notice it till it's off. But when it's off, boy, this is disgusting.
I think I said in my review. It looks like after a full day's use, it looks slightly like someone's just given birth to it.
Yeah.
Which is not rough.
And it's harder to do the thing you can do with an iPhone, where you just slyly, wipe it on your shirt or whatever.
Right, or your thigh.
Yeah,
you really have
it's too big.
This is,
I
say again, Andy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep the lag means it makes it hard for me to find where the gaps are in the
I know
conversation. My apologies.
you can't insert your bon mot appropriately.
Exactly. But yeah, no, the MiFi I think is a really fantastic accessory for this. If you're not paying for wireless broadband anyplace else, it might, and you don't feel as though you're going to have more devices, it kind of makes sense to go for the $30 plan, because it's a lot cheaper than the industry standard $50 or $60 a month that the MiFi charges. But if you also have the need to, I also want to be able to get my laptop online. I also want to get other devices online. I might have a game system that I might want to get online. Really, that's the last bill you ever pay for monthly broadband ever. For that said, I do have a 3G model coming in a few weeks, chiefly because I'm writing that book about it. But if I did not have that obligation, I probably would have just stuck with the Wi-Fi version and doubled it up with a MiFi.
Well, there's an advantage to the MiFi. It's Sprint or Verizon. It's not AT&T.
Exactly. So you're on a separate network. Yeah. I mean, if AT&T ever opened up tethering on the iPad or on the iPhone, that might be a different thing entirely. Like the ability.
You think we'll see
to
tethering
do
in
what you
4?
do with Palm Pre.
I guess it's already in the OS.
No, it's
already
in the
there.
It's just the
It's
US.
already there.
Yeah.
AT&T.
Yeah.
The bigger question is, do you think AT&T is going to
Right.
let us use it before 4.0 comes out, or are they going to go an entire calendar year where it's enabled in the OS and everybody all over around the world is using it and we're not? I would bet no. I would bet no. We're not going to see it until who knows when. I don't know. I wouldn't bet we ever see it.
Any other last story? Oh, we didn't really talk about this. Slate, Atom, this is the HP competitor, an Atom-based processor, at least according to the leak that Engadget published. It looked like a top secret HP presentation slide. It will cost less, but lower battery life. It will have a camera. It will have multitasking. It will have Windows 7. I guess the real question is, will it be as easy to use as the iPad? Will it compete with the iPad, or will it just be yet another Windows tablet, of which we've seen quite a few over the last 10 years?
I think there are going to be two major failures. Number one, I've never seen a desktop OS tablet that in any way reacted the way that a tablet should.
Right.
I've actually
Smaller
used a couple
screen,
Windows
by the
7
way.
tablets
1024 by 600, which I think is a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, and then you get into the second problem, which is that they're going to have to make sure they can't really. There's some things they can't cheap out on. I was concerned about the iPad because I was expecting to see a user interface with much bigger buttons, so you can really find it and tab it very, very easily. Because I'm used to not being able to use tablets well when they take the desktop operating system, just shrink it down to the screen,
Right.
and now I have to somehow find a closed window box with this little thing. But with the iPad, I find that the buttons are the right size. Maybe it wasn't the size of the buttons that was the problem. It was the accuracy of the encoder that was the problem. So if I intend to tap here, that's where that tap registers, and I've never had a problem really in hitting the buttons that I aim for. So the problem that HP is going to face is that if they decided that, gee, we got to get this to be cheaper than the iPad, well, let's not use the best encoder possible. Let's just use something that sort of works. Then that's just going to either frustrate the hell out of everybody, or they're going to be forced to totally rewrite Windows to make sure that it will work with on pressure tabs that are about the size of a $50.
Front-facing and back-facing cameras, by the way, which is kind of interesting.
So look forward to lots of chats in which you get to see up people's noses. It's such a big practical problem that, again, if you're going to be holding it like this, you get the upshot. That's why I'm sort of wondering if the better idea wouldn't be, since the iPad can work in any orientation, any side can be up. What if you hold it this way, so that the dock connector is now at the top, and then Apple just makes a simple camera that snaps on there. Not only will it be an optional accessory, but also you can make it rotate and pivot, so you can aim it pretty much wherever you want it to go. To me, that would be the much better solution.
Ecamm sells, and I bought it, and it doesn't work with the. I was hoping it might, on a long shot, work with the iPad. This thing, it's the BT1. It's a Bluetooth camera with microphone, and it comes with a little tripod. And the idea would be if you could do this in Bluetooth, and it works on the Mac very well, but you have to put the software on the Mac. Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? Just have a little Bluetooth tripod camera, and I think the iPad has enough horsepower to do it. Anyway,
that Ecamm thing is great. I love that gadget.
Isn't it cool?
It's one of those things where it's a total living the life of James Bond type gadget. You know what I mean? Like I never,
Microphone's not great, but boy, the picture is pretty darn good considering it's going over Bluetooth. Let's see. I guess that's it. We're going to do our picks next, but first let's do our Audible pick of the week. Audible is our sponsor, of course, has been on the network for a long time. They do the great audiobooks we've come to love, come to depend on, at least for me, for my sanity. If you've got a long commute, yeah, you can listen to podcasts. Sure. In fact, we hope you do. But every once in a while, it's nice to get a little educational material in there, or maybe just a little escapism. Audible.com/MacBreak is the place to go to take a look at the 70,000 books now in the Audible bookstore. All of them read by wonderful actors who bring these books to life. That's what I really enjoy. And some great choices here. Every time I go to the Audible page and I look at the stuff on the front page, which is the new stuff, I go, "Ooh, I want to listen to that. I want to listen to that." And I have the 2-book-a-month subscription, like this one, "Contested Will: Who Wrote Shakespeare" by James Shapiro. I'd love to know about that. Robin Williams, who wrote the Little MacBook, has a theory that Shakespeare was a woman. I'm sure she's included in this. Audible.com/MacBreak. Andy, you must have stocked up before you went to Colorado for the World Affairs Council. You got anything good on the iPod there?
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to recommend, I think this is one of the books I've recommended a couple years before. I'm a huge fan of Julia Sweeney's monologues. There's 3 of them that she's done that have been released on Audible. And this less of an audiobook than a captured performance. She does these monologues that are just so well planned out. They take you on such a journey, and they're so engagingly performed that you're just with her every step of the way. She's done 3 autobiographical ones. The first one was God Said Ha, about God Said Ha, which is sort of a journey that she was taking where she just had a really bad couple of years in which her brother got sick and then she got sick, and meanwhile she's making a lot of changes in her life and her career, and it's such a relatable and engaging performance. The next one that I think is the best of the 3, what an achievement she did with this one. It's called Letting Go of God, because she was raised, I believe, Catholic, and this monologue is about her gentle transition into accepting the fact that she doesn't believe in God anymore, that it's not working for her, and accepting the fact that, and being able to really be happy with the fact that she is an atheist. Your eyes sort of religious opinion is a lot like political opinion, that you're instantly sort of bracing yourself, saying, "Oh, this is probably going to be someone from either extreme of this argument, and there's going to be a lot of shouting and a lot of people the other person who doesn't agree with you is an idiot." But this is the most powerful and winning argument I've ever heard. It just simply walks you not through the argument against God, but the reason why she herself came to this decision and why this was the right decision for her. The latest one is In the Family Way, which is another sort of life transition that she made, which she now is since the last one, now she's a mom. Now she's settling down a little bit more. Recently she moved, I believe, to the Chicago area not to make a big change of life, but because that was just the right decisions for her right away. Hang on a second.
We'll be right back with this word after this word from Andy's host.
Sorry about that. Yes. But yeah, so what's put me back in that mind is that she's one of the speakers here at the conference this week.
Oh, neat.
And I I got to meet her yesterday, and she is the most delightful person ever. Like the sweetest person I've ever met in my entire life.
Oh, that's neat.
And like instantly, I'm like, oh, life is wonderful. The world is wonderful. Not because she's saying these things, but because she's just such a happy person when she's just talking to you. And so. She was on that list of some of these speakers where I read the guest list, the speakers list, and I'm thinking I've been a huge fan of this person for many years. Andy, it is vitally important you not behave like a dork when you meet this person. If what you have to do is say hello, very pleasant to meet you. Oh, what was that you said? Oh, you're a monologist. You're a monologist. That's easy for you to say. Very nice to meet you. Well, is that where the buffet is?
It's okay to say I'm a big fan of your work, Andy. Take it from me as a super celebrity.
Exactly. I know.
It's okay to do that.
I know. Well, see, the other one I was hoping to meet was Werner Herzog, and I actually shared a car ride with him last night.
Wow.
And so Werner Herzog is talking to me and saying, "So, how did you get where you are?" and I was trying to. It feels like you're in a movie being interviewed by someone who decides where you go next in life.
That's so awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Do you read poetry?
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so these are just great audiobooks. The only disadvantage, and the only reason why I don't always recommend them is that when some of these audiobooks are 10, 20, 30 hours long, and I'm a big favor of sticking it to the man whenever possible. Her monologues are stage performances that go for like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Right.
So you're not getting the most minutes per dollar there, but in terms of entertainment, I think they're the best titles that are some of the best titles that are out there in Audible. I
don't think it's a bad idea. You know, I think the first time you get an audiobook, it's probably a good idea to get something that you just know you're going to enjoy because, you know, it takes a little while to get kind of the rhythm of listening instead of reading. And so I think this is a great way to kind of ease your way into it. The point is you get one free. So go and try Julia Sweeney. God Said Ha, Letting Go of God, or the third in the trilogy, God Made Me Pregnant. No, I'm sorry. In a Family Way, I think is what it's called. Audible.com/MacBreak. That is the site to go to get your first book free, and please forgive the inappropriate. What would you call it? Heresy? Huh?
Is there appropriate heresy?
No, there isn't.
I think it's kind of,
sacrilege. That was the word I was looking for. Please forgive the sacrilege. Audible has in no way, in any way at all, has anything to do with it. Audible.com/MacBreak. Now, let us move on. It is time for... Audible's going, why? Why does he do that to me? I was just looking, I was looking at Street View on the iPad because the Maps application that you do the Street View is really cool. Like I could, for the first time, like see inside the building and everything. It's really neato.
It's stunning. That was one of the first things we did when we looked at. Someone pulled it up, and it was just. It looks unbelievably great.
Yeah, I want to walk down the street with it. Neat. All right, let's get a pick.
That will be like when the GPS version comes out.
Yeah, imagine. Well, I'm surprised this does pretty good geolocation via Wi-Fi. They're pretty accurate, at least everywhere I go.
The whole Maps app is really, really great.
It's very
really
nice.
is. It's one of the best apps on the system.
It was so funny when Steve showed it at the event because he never mentioned it's Google.
No.
He completely left that part out. We've done a great Maps app for let's get our pick of the week, starting with the upper left corner to block, Mr. Alex Lindsay.
So, there's so many.
I know.
There's so many iPad apps that you want to talk about.
I know.
So I'm trying to find one that I want to do one that I think is a little bit original and someone else might not pick up immediately, which is generally I find that they're fun apps, but they're not that useful. But there's always something about them. So Smule,
just Smule.
Has Magic Piano. Have you guys played with the Magic Piano yet?
I'll play with it right now while I'll accompany you.
Okay.
While you speak.
But it's random. But the thing about here's the thing that they've changed is that you have this current location.
Right.
And so number one, you can play these great little songs, and it's the way that they've set it up to like teach you to play their little thing is great.
There's a songbook. So I do the songbook, right?
And you can play little songs, and it just all you do is it's kind of like paint by numbers, and you're playing classical. And are you playing it now? And so the thing
I didn't even know I could play that.
I know, and it sounds fun when you do it. But here's the thing: is they have one in the menu. You'll see duet.
Yeah. How do I do that?
Duet, and it literally connects you to somebody else in the world who's playing.
All right, I'm gonna just put in my name, Leo. It's finding a duet partner. Boy, they're gonna be sorry. Chris, you're a keyboardist. I mean, can you actually play this as like a keyboard?
Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, the whole idea behind all Smul's things are that non-keyboard or non-musicians can play them and make music.
So I'm connected
I have to
somebody.
say, there were some people that were playing it that were very good.
I'm connected.
Like I was like, they were really playing music on it, like music that I recognize. A lot of time with these Smul, a lot of these are, it's just random stuff that sounds good. And what happens is you get on this duet, and it automatically, like, it gets you somebody, and then you can keep on choosing somebody new. And, some people, I literally just chose someone new because they were so good I knew I'd ignore them. Because I was just kind of, but there were a couple people, but there's this weird thing. It's like the next step of their apps where you could see someone else in the world playing. Now you're actually interacting with them live, where they'll play something and then you play something back, and then they play something and you play something back, or you try to play together. And there was something about it that was, to me, magical, that you were, I just became transfixed on this thing for, a little while, like playing with different people all over the world. I thought that there's something about
it's chat roulette for music. He's just nexted me, and then my heart is broken.
Chat duet.
So the way it works, if you tap a higher up, it's a higher note, right? But you can do arpeggios and.
Well, and you can also set the Magic Piano to be different styles. So if you hit the little piano button, it'll change the style. So there's one that's like a swirl, and then the one that's most useful that if you knew how to play, I don't know how to play.
This looks like an actual circle. Yeah,
there's one that's like
keyboard.
A circle,
right?
And then there is the one.
So Chris Breen, I mean, you're a keyboardist. Can you play this?
That's not the way I'm accustomed to playing an instrument. So it's fun to play with. And I think you can do some musical things with it, but if you're a traditional musician, it's going to be a little challenging.
It's a little annoying, probably.
But there were definitely people who were traditional musicians who had figured out how to play that thing very well. Like I couldn't believe what was coming out of it on the duets. And there was some I just tried to keep up with, and they just went, you know what, I'm going to go with somebody else because you suck.
You suck. Yeah, I'm playing with Gary right now in Canada. How do you get one of these? Are they selling them in Canada?
You throw them over the border.
How did they get them somewhere else?
Well, we're sending one to New Zealand.
Oh, no.
Oh, now I'm talking to Trey. Hey, Trey. Trey knows what he's doing. I wonder if this is Trey in Austin. He's playing the Star Wars theme.
That's just for you, Alex. Okay, let's find out how good the reach of this podcast is. Next one, I'd like to hear Louie.
Well, this guy says hi, Leo, so he knows he's found me somehow, and he's
okay. Well, ask him to play Louie.
Can you play Louie, Trey?
It's gonna be like a 20-second delay of us getting to him for him to hear us say
He's playing Star Wars, which is really wild. Now he's playing the Death Star March.
No, that's
Heart and Soul. No, Louie.
But he's playing that on that little
on a circular keyboard. Heart and Soul. Maybe he'll come up. So I don't know if this is the same Trey that is in Austin who does the great HDR stuff, but he sent us some amazing. If you go to stuckincustoms.com, he's got some beautiful iPad wallpaper. Would you like to continue to play duet mode? I guess yes, I would. Now it's finding a new partner for me. So that's pretty cool. So that's Smule. How much is that? Magic Piano. It's not much. $5, something like
it's that. Less than $10. I mean, I think it was like $2.99 or $4.99 or something like that. But it's a great and as I said, it's not so much. I just felt like it really showed this kind of interesting window that's starting to kind of start to build up. They've been really pioneering, and I got to talk to one of the developers at a dinner, cool. and they really get that world view is a big segment of their application.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny now because it's iPad, so you only see the U.S. We're not going all over the place yet, but I'm sure we will soon. Smule's Magic Piano. Mr. Chris Breen, what do you like? Chris, of course, writes those great iPod books, so he's very focused on iPod content.
I am, but unfortunately, I'm going to be a contrarian today.
All right.
And I needed to get my iPad back from my daughter, and she wouldn't give it to me. So I had to find something else that I could lure her to, so that I could get my iPad back. And the recent luring is stop motion animation.
Oh, fun.
And she really, really likes it. And I've been checking it out for an article that I wrote. And I've looked at a couple of programs. And the one that we've been using lately is called Dragon Stop Motion. Huh. It's from DZ Software. It's $275. So this is high-end pro application stuff. Yeah, it's a pro application. They send you this USB controller that you plug in, and you can control your video camera that you've plugged into your Mac. Also, it will support DSLR cameras.
Oh, I was going to ask, because if you could do this with a 5D, you could do super high-res stuff.
I'm a Nikon shooter, and I use it with my D300, and it works really, really well.
Oh, this is neat.
So they do onion skinning. There are you can do time-lapse. There's an audio track for it. It also has X-Sheet so that you can create a technical script as you're doing it. Again, this is not, if you want to use stop motion for at home, you'd use something like Boinx's iStop Motion,
right? The
$49 edition. But if you want to do more stuff and more professional stuff, this Dragon Stop Motion is really, really good. And iStop Motion comes in a professional flavor, but it's almost $500. So at $275, this is a bargain. You get the hardware controller, and you can do some really, really great stuff. And best of all, if your kid's got your iPad,
you can get it back.
You can say, oh, look over here, what's attached to my MacBook Pro, and oh, look, and I just happen to have a lot of clay here and several Gumby figures, and knock yourself out, and then you get your iPad back.
You could make the Fantastic Mr. Fox with this thing. This is pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah. No, Alex, have you ever used this?
Yeah, actually, I think I recommended an earlier version of it on MacBreak maybe 2 years ago or something, or a year and a half ago, and it was one of those things that my son, same story. My son was really getting into stop motion, and I was really looking at what the next step is, and of course that's not the next step. That's the final step.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really if this is what this is what they use in studios. I mean, this is not a little game anymore. It really is the full tool set that you need to create a stop motion film.
And if you shot it with a 5D, you'd be doing more than film quality.
Well, if you shot it with a Rebel,
even a Rebel, you would be.
Yeah. It's very, very. It's a really, really great application, really well implemented, and it's built by guys who are doing this stuff. And it's just I couldn't recommend it any better or more than Chris does. It's fantastic.
That's really neat. Thank you, Chris. Great recommendation. That is from DragonStopMotion.com. There is a try before you buy, so you don't have to spend the $275. Although, if it's this professional, that's a great price.
Yeah.
John Gruber, you want to make a recommendation? Something you like these days? You've been playing with?
So hard to pick, but I'm gonna pick NetNewsWire for the iPad, which and NetNewsWire didn't start life as a Google Reader client for RSS feeds, but that's what it uses now for syncing.
Right.
And it works great. So it syncs between any other places where you read your Google Reader feeds.
Right.
And I love it. You've got it right there, right?
Yep.
I love it on the iPad. And it uses fundamentally the same layout as the Mail app, where you've got this split view with your sources on the left in a narrow column, and then pretty much, maybe it's a perfect square on the right.
It looks like it, yeah.
Where you read the feed content. But where it really, really is just great is you're reading like a link log, like Kotkey or something like that. It's what he's linking to that's most important. And it doesn't take you out of the app. It just loads the web page right there. And that square, 2/3 of the screen over there, is just the perfect size for reading. So I use it. I would say the only time I use NetNewsWire in portrait mode is when I accidentally hold the iPad in portrait mode. For me, it's a landscape app, because I want that thing over there. It's just a great way to go through feeds, and because you're not going back and forth. The thing I hate, I want mail. The more I use this, I want mail on the iPad to load web pages in place, because it's that switching where somebody sends me a link in my email and I tap it, and now I'm out of mail and I'm in Safari and I'm waiting for the thing to load, and then I want to go back to mail. With NetNewsWire, it's just read, scroll, next. There's a right in the top right corner, it's just next. It's just a magic button that shows you the next unread item in your feeds, whether it's in this feed or another feed. And it just works great. I absolutely, I would buy an iPad that only had this app on it.
Is it free?
No, it is not free. It is $10, and it is going to. They actually have a new website for NetNewsWire. It's NetNewsWireApp.com, and I think they announced this, that it's going to be $15 in May.
So buy now.
So if you're gonna buy it in April.
Yeah, I bought it, of course, immediately. I'm a NetNewsWire user, and I until there's a Google Reader or a version for the iPad, this is definitely the way.
I'm not sure how it could be much better. I mean, that's
I could tell you one way.
Of course,
sounds
like
you got
to see somebody make a better.
Sounds like you got a pipeline to them. There's one thing I'd really like is Delicious integration. It's integrated into the desktop application, because the one thing that I do all the time that I can't do I haven't figured out how to do on the iPad yet is read news stuff and bookmark it for this show and other shows that we do. I just want to be able to get to Delicious, or it doesn't have to be Delicious, somewhere.
Oh, you know what? You should sign up for Instapaper, because it has sent to Instapaper.
I do use
support.
Instapaper, but I can't. Well, can I share that with somebody else? No.
I don't know.
That's the problem. Is I need to get bookmarks into a place where everybody who's on the show can see it. Yep. And by the way, that was going to be my recommendation. Is I have a couple. I love Instapaper, and there's an iPad version of it, $1.99. It's fantastic. I've been using Instapaper to send materials to my Kindle, and now I don't have to do that. I can just pull it up right here on the iPad. It's great. And I've been using, I do have NetNewsWire, but as I mentioned earlier, I've been using Early Edition as well, which gives you a much more newspapery feel. It's a little bit more manual. You have to manually enter the feeds. They say next edition will have a Google Reader sync, which would be very nice. But I like the way it builds a newspaper. And even within the newspaper, you can scroll the stories, which is kind of wonderful, inside the column, which is kind of silly, but in a way, it's a great way to skim a lot of news very quickly. So it's a little slow to build it, depending on your internet connectivity, but I just love the way the Early Edition. What I'm liking is seeing different ways people are handling this issue of how to get more information onto the screen. And I really love the iPad as a content consumption device. And
the one thing, and Instapaper and NetNewsWire are both just perfect examples of it, and it goes back to my complaint earlier in the show about the iWork apps and how you can't figure out how to get your documents from here to there. With Instapaper and NetNewsWire, it feels like the future, where I'm sitting at my Mac and I'm reading feeds, and I quit NetNewsWire. Oh, but the last item I had was something I do want to read later, so I send it to Instapaper. And then I go downstairs and I pick up my iPad and I turn on Instapaper. There's the article I just sent to Instapaper. And when I leave it, after I read it and I open NetNewsWire on my iPad, the feeds, all the unread items, are in sync with where I left them from my Mac. It is absolutely, Star Trek, living in the future, using these multiple devices as clients to one set of information in my head. It's really, really, both of them are great apps.
As long as we're giving thumbs up, a thumbs down to the Wall Street Journal, which gave away an app for free. And if you're a subscriber, like I am, I thought, oh, great, I logged into my account and I was getting the journal. I thought, this is great. And then after 2 days, they said, now you have to pay. And you have to, and you have to pay, what it was, it's $4 or $5 a week. And it's like, I just deleted it. It's like, I got some other apps here. New York Times is offering free content. They call it Editor's Choice, which is a little odd. AP has a very weird-looking app that maybe not so great. However, NPR and BBC News have done a really good job with making iPad apps as well.
Did you hear the story about the New York Times app?
No, what is the story behind it?
So I forget the source, and I apologize to who wrote this up. It might have been the Media Memo website. I forget, but my apologies. I don't have it on top of my head. But the story is, and this is not on the record. It's conjecture, though, that the New York Times' deal with Amazon for the Kindle, you subscribe to it. I forget. You pay something. You pay something a month, and you get the New York Times, the full New York Times delivered. Right. That the deal they have is
it's $20 a month.
So they can't the deal stipulates that they can't give the full New York Times to another Kindle-like device for a lower price. They can do it, but it's not exclusive, but they can't undercut the price on the Kindle. Well, the iPad app is free.
Right.
At least for now.
Right.
So that's why they're doing this editor's choice thing where it's not the full content of the Daily New York Times.
It's pretty good, though.
It is pretty good. It's the it's the op-ed page. It's the full front page.
Yeah, the technology page, the business page.
Right.
And it's nicely done. There are ads in it. That was another thing, by the way.
The ads are really good.
Yeah, they're subtle. They're not bad. The Wall Street Journal, full-page ads every 3 seconds. Man, they did a crappy job, and I'm glad to see Rupert Murdoch go down.
One thing that's really weird, and maybe you can see it right now in the Times app with the ads, is the ads are their own swipe region. So when you go to swipe from one page to another, if your finger starts on an ad, it doesn't take.
Oh, yeah, you're right. The ad stays.
Right.
The swipe.
I thought it was a bug at first. And I was like, this is nuts. But then I realized what it was, and I guess it's so that they can deliver interactive ads where your taps go. I don't know. It's a little... weird.
They do a really nice job.
The ad doesn't have to refresh every single time either.
They do. I think they do a nice job. This is a very readable, browsable interface. So much better than the Kindle, frankly, for reading periodicals. I can't wait till the New Yorker does an iPad version.
Yeah, and it feels like the New York Times. I mean, if you're, this is obviously putting on, I got to start getting more gray in my hair here. But if you really love the paper edition of the New York Times, or ever did, I mean, this really has that exact same vibe.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of hopeful. I was hopeful that this is the kind of experience we'd have with the Kindle, and I think they've done the iPad, and I think they've done a really nice job. Andy Ihnatko, I think you're the last to make a pick.
I will make a pick. I wanted to avoid the apps that were available for the iPad, like at launch day, but it's more of the topic than the Marvel Comics app that I'm recommending.
I love this app, and I didn't recommend it just so that you could.
It's done so exceptionally well. Everybody who's a comics fan has always thought that the reason why digital comics hasn't really taken off is there's never been a device like the iPad that can really show off such a complicated document that can't really be reflowed into a smaller page form. You really have to have that entire unit of a page in some way, and yet you need color, you need easy navigation, you need to be able to move from one spot to another very, very easily, and that's pretty much what they've done with the Marvel Comics app. It's actually, I believe they licensed Comixology app. They have their Comixology also has their store that uses this basic technology that has titles by image and others. But it really does show the proof of concept that a comic book is perfectly readable in this form factor. And I think this will show everybody who's developing an app like this exactly the way that these things should go. That if you hold it up vertically, the page fills up the entire screen, only slightly smaller, and it's perfectly readable at the smaller size. If you tilt it on its side, then you have the opportunity to see it at full page width size. But it will also give you this neat navigator. Hang on.
I just love the thing that you showed when you reviewed it with Alex of once you get in that page mode, you just tap it,
right? So,
and it goes pane by pane.
If you don't necessarily want to see it, see the entire page as one unit, what you can do is simply tap on like the upper left corner. It'll automatically zoom in on that bubble of dialogue. But in addition to that, you can just simply hitting like page buttons. It will just simply take you to the next bit of dialogue or the next scene of action and sort of navigate you through the comic page, panel after panel, beat for beat, shot for shot, and you can read the entire comic that way. I'm glad that it has support for both types of viewing. Now, I started off by saying that I think that the Marvel Comics app by Comixology is done exactly the way you'd want a comic book app to be done. I don't think that's going to be the last that we'll see of it. I think that that really is the proof of concept that demonstrates to every other publisher and every other third-party developer that they can make these apps. I loaded up, in terms of other third-party apps, what we're looking for are apps that will let you use just generic unlocked comic book files. There are two different formats, CBR and CBZ. In the end, they're very, very simple. They're just compressed archive files of just a big stack of JPEGs with each page representing another JPEG file. There are two apps like that on there right now. Neither of them are terribly good. They're ports of iPhone apps, and you could tell that the controls are not meant for full page swiping. It's more like physical page turn buttons than anything else. They function, and as a matter of fact, I read like 8 issues of a comic on the flight over to Denver and enjoyed it a lot. But that's in a month from now, I really think you're going to see a real explosion in comic book apps, and it will just emphatically state how good digital comics can be on a device like the iPad.
Yeah, I'm very excited about content consumption in general.
Before we leave the content discussion, have you guys played with the Netflix?
Yes.
Yeah.
Watched movies.
I mean,
finally, I can rearrange my queue without a third-party app. Just love it.
I mean, the only thing was that it felt like it feels like they're going to have to update the interface because it felt like it was a little rough, like you're just using the web page.
It's like a web page.
Once they fix that, I mean, I was just like, oh, it was just such a great.
Especially when you have the MiFi, and it even works great over 3G over the MiFi, and just the knowledge that, gee, I'm a little bored. I think I'll watch any of about 30,000 different top drawer movies and TV shows that are available to me via streaming for no additional charge based on my $8.95 Netflix fee. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do because I'm an iPad owner.
My real problem is I get in bed with the iPad and I have about 20 different things I want to do. And so I can't, I used to play a little this, watch a little movie. I should throw in one more thing that you can do, which of course is watch Twit on the iPad. Houdini7 has made a great application, the Twit for the iPad, or TwitPad as he calls it, that has the calendar, it has the chat, and it has the video all on one page. Makes it very easy for you to watch wherever you are on the iPad. It does require Wi-Fi right now due to limitations imposed by Apple. This matches the iPhone app, so we have an iPhone and an iPad app. And I told Houdini7 you should charge because you're putting all this work in for nothing for us, and so he's charging 99 cents, but well worth it. And I think it's nice to give him a little bit of a tip when you pick it up. He's done such a nice job.
I thought it was a fantastic app. I was really glad to see it being charged for because I was like, he has to get some money for this because it's just such a, obviously a lot of work went into it.
Yeah, I really encouraged him to do that.
No problem buying it.
99 cents is nothing. Yeah. All right. Hey, thanks, everybody. Really great to have you on, John Gruber. Thank you for being here. John Gruber, of course, is the prototypical, the essential, the must-read Mac blogger at daringfireball.net. We are glad to have you here from Philadelphia, home of Cabletown, USA.
With a K. Cabletown with a K.
Have a great day, John. Enjoy your iPad. Also,
pleasure.
Chris Breen, the Mac Daddy from Macworld Magazine, senior editor there at macworld.com, and the author of the Mac 911 column. Also, I'm sure you're working on an iPad book, I would guess, yes?
Actually, I'm going to be doing iPad video training for lynda.com.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That'll be fun. I'll look forward to that. That's great. And anywhere you want to send people to, Chris? Anything else you want to plug?
Oh, you can just go to macworld.com.
That's a good place to go. Andy Ihnatko is the editor-in-chief of the Chicago Sun-Times. His website is Celestial Waste of Bandwidth, CWOB.com. And read his, 6-part review of the iPad in the Chicago Sun-Times?
Yeah, 6,000-word main review and about 5,000 words of other things.
And you are working on a book.
I got a lot of sleep on Saturday night. That's why I missed my flight Sunday morning.
Oops. And I know you are working on a book, so we'll look forward to that. Is it going to be called iPad Unleashed?
Nope. The iPad Fully Loaded is works for later in the year, but it's going to be a different topic. This is going to be a general interest iPad book. I'm really excited about it. I'm submitting my first chapters this week, as a matter of fact.
Great.
We should have the title locked down. I should be able to direct people to a pre-order page next week, hopefully.
Fantastic. Alex Lindsay is the head of the Pixel Corps, pixelcorps.com, and a great place for you to get trained and then to get work as a multimedia artist. And a special deal.
We finally finished it. We finished the launch.
You finished Pixel Corps?
Yeah, so people have been asking us over and over, when are we going to do the relaunch of the Pixel Corps and change a lot of the structures and everything else, because we've been talking about it. And this is the week. So we had people some of the former members start coming in last week, and now we're opening it up to everyone else. And so instead of being $50 a month, the Pixel Corps is now is dropping to $99 a year. We've changed some of the structures so that we can make it.
That's a great deal.
It's really we really wanted to make it something that I actually think is going to be more compelling than what we had before, in a way that we can make it more affordable. So there's lots of challenges. You're going to see live feeds of us actually doing podcasts and visual effects production and lots of shooting. You'll be able to discuss it with other people. We're going to give people production challenges that they can work on together. So we're also going to extend this week to a handful of podcasts that are friends of ours, $50 off that, because we really want the people who are watching these shows and really connected to us in first. It's really important from a community perspective, and so we're going to give $50 off. So it's $49. It's less than $1 a week to get an awful lot of training and community, and so it is. And all you need to do is use the coupon code is MBW, MacBreak Weekly. So go ahead and use that coupon, and you'll get it for $49. And it is we're pretty excited. We've been working for about 18 months to get the structure and put all the pieces in place, and we're going to be doing a lot of live streaming for the members and a lot of discussions. And so anyway, so we're finally getting it out of wraps this week.
Very good. Thank you, Alex Lindsay. That's exciting. Pixelcore.com, of course, the podcasts are at pixelcore.tv, and you're going off to NAB soon, right?
Next week, and we're going to be streaming live. We're taking. I saw you with the live view, and I was just like, "Oh, we got to do that from NAB."
Yeah.
So we got one of the. I think the box shows up today, and we're going to be testing it. So we'll be streaming from some of the parties, from some of the events. Whoever will let us turn the camera on, we're gonna stream and do some coverage. So it should be fun.
We used the live view, the Ustream streamer on Friday night. Eric Lanigan, who's one of our editors and a young fellow, really talented guy, went with Colleen and Dane down to the Palo Alto store. He interviewed Woz, a bunch of other interesting people, including the guy who did Chat Roulette and Robert Scoble in the line at the at Steve Jobs' iPod store at the Palo Alto store. You can see that on our Twit Specials feed, which is available through iTunes, or you can just go to youtube.com/twit, and all of our stuff, including this show, is also put on YouTube. But we'd like it if you subscribe, because that helps us rise up through the ranks in the iTunes charts. So just go to iTunes and search for Twit. You'll find our show page, and you can get all the MacBreak stuff and get the or the Twit specials as well, because that's where we put that kind of stuff. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, John. Thank you all for being here. Now you get back to work. Break time is over. We'll see you next week.